Hello and welcome to Ben 10 What If, your home for amazing stories. Today's story is, what if Ben 10 got Chaquetrix in MHA and fell for alien Momo? Don't forget to like this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe if you haven't already. We post new stories regularly. Let's get started. Chapter 1, Strange New World. The familiar green flash faded, leaving Ben Tennyson momentarily blinded. That wasn't supposed to happen. 1 second he'd been fighting Dr. Onemo's latest mutant creation in Bellwood Park, and the next, after slamming the Omnitrix in desperation, he was here. Wherever here was. That's definitely not Humongosaur, Ben muttered, looking down at his hands. Still human. The Omnitrix on his wrist blinked yellow instead of its usual green, cycling through unfamiliar patterns. Great. Another malfunction. The air felt different, heavier somehow, charged with an energy he couldn't identify. The city sprawling before him resembled a futuristic Tokyo more than Bellwood, with sleek skyscrapers and massive digital billboards featuring people in colorful costumes. A headline scrolled across the nearest screen, All Might saves 37 in highway disaster. All Might? What kind of hero name is that? Ben squinted at the image of a muscular blonde man with an impossibly wide smile. Something was very wrong. He pulled out his phone, no service. Not even emergency calls. Grandpa Max is going to kill me if I jump dimensions again, Ben groaned, pocketing the device. Okay, Tennyson, think. First step, figure out where you are. Second, fix the Omnitrix. Third, get home before dinner. The park he stood in was bustling with afternoon activity, but something caught his attention immediately. Many of the people walking by had peculiarities. A woman with pink skin. A businessman with elongated fingers typing on multiple phones simultaneously. A child hovering several inches above the ground while his normal-looking mother held his hand. Definitely not Earth. At least not my Earth, Ben whispered. His fingers instinctively moved to the Omnitrix, finding comfort in the familiar device despite its malfunction. If trouble found him, and it always did, he'd need it working. A commotion erupted from a nearby street. Screams punctuated the air as people began running in Ben's direction, away from something. Years of hero work had conditioned his response. Ben ran toward the danger while everyone else fled. Rounding the corner, he came face to face with chaos. A hulking figure with concrete-like skin was smashing through storefronts, pocketing jewelry and cash. Police officers stood at a distance, weapons drawn but clearly hesitant. Quirk too strong for conventional methods, Ben overheard one officer say into a radio. Requesting hero backup immediately. Quirk. Ben frowned. No time to figure out the terminology. This was a job for Diamond Head or maybe XLR8. He ducked behind a car and activated the Omnitrix. The familiar holographic display appeared, but the silhouettes were scrambled, flickering between recognizable aliens and strange new forms he'd never seen before. Come on, work with me here, Ben pleaded, twisting the dial. He selected what he hoped was Diamond Head and slammed his hand down. The green flash was brighter than usual, almost blinding. Energy coursed through Ben's body, unfamiliar, raw power that felt nothing like his usual transformations. When the light faded, Ben looked down at himself and froze. His body was humanoid but composed of what appeared to be swirling blue and green energy, contained within a crystalline exoskeleton. Electrical pulses danced across his surface, and he could feel power humming through every fiber of his being. Not Diamond Head. Not any alien he recognized. What the? His voice resonated with an echoing quality. New alien. Now. No time to complain. The concrete villain had spotted him, eyes narrowing at this new potential threat. Another hero, the villain growled, his voice gravelly. You don't look like any pro I know. Ben stepped forward, instinctively raising his hands. I don't know what a pro is, but I know a bad guy when I see one. How about you put back everything you stole and surrender? The villain laughed. Nice light show, kid. But my hardening quirk makes me impenetrable. You're not even in costume, you some kind of unlicensed vigilante. Without warning, the villain charged, concrete fists raised. Ben dodged on instinct, surprised by his new form's speed and agility. He felt light, energized. I don't know what this alien does, Ben muttered to himself, but let's find out. He reached inside for the power he could feel pulsing through him and extended his hand. A blast of concentrated energy erupted from his palm, striking the villain square in the chest. The concrete cracked slightly, and the villain stumbled backward. What kind of energy quirk is that? The villain snarled, brushing concrete dust from his chest. Ben grinned, or tried to, unsure if this alien form could show expressions. It's not a quirk, it's called Chaquetrix. The name came to him instinctively, as it often did with new transformations. He could feel knowledge of this form's abilities unfolding in his mind. Energy manipulation. Force field generation. Power absorption and redirection. The villain charged again, and this time Ben concentrated on forming a shield. Energy coalesced before him into a translucent barrier that the villain crashed into. The impact reverberated through Ben's form, and he instinctively channeled it back outward. The energy pulse sent the villain flying backward into a parked car. Okay, that was cool, Ben said, looking at his hands. Energy reflection. Useful. The concrete villain roared in frustration and ripped a streetlight from the ground, wielding it like a bat. Stand still, light show. Ben raised both hands this time, focusing on something new he could feel within this form, a pulling sensation. As the villain swung, Ben drew energy from the surrounding electrical lines. Power surged through him, and he directed it outward in a concentrated beam. The energy struck the villain's concrete body with such force that cracks spread across his hardened skin. He dropped to his knees, the streetlight clattering beside him. That's impossible, the villain gasped. No energy quirk should be able to. Before he could finish, the sound of something landing heavily behind Ben caught his attention. He turned to see a massive figure, the same blond man from the billboard, impossibly muscular with that distinctive wide smile. Fear not, citizen. For I am here. The man announced in an exuberant voice that somehow matched his larger-than-life presence. Though it seems you have the situation well in hand. Quite impressive. Thanks. Ben replied, still adjusting to his new form's resonant voice. Just doing what heroes do. All might, the gathering crowd cheered, phones out recording everything. The man, all might apparently, stepped forward and efficiently restrained the concrete villain with specialized cuffs. Interesting quirk you have, young man. Don't believe I've seen you before. Are you a new hero course student? Before Ben could answer, the familiar beeping of the Omnitrix timer sounded. 4 beeps, almost out of time. Sorry, gotta go. Ben called, dashing away from the crowd and cameras. He ducked into an alley just as the final beep sounded and a flash of red light returned him to human form. Ben leaned against the brick wall, breathing heavily. That was different. He examined the Omnitrix, still flashing yellow occasionally. Chaquetrix, huh? Not bad for a first outing. But what happened to all my other aliens? The sound of footsteps entering the alley made Ben look up. A thin, disheveled man with sunken eyes stood watching him. Despite his sickly appearance, something about his gaze was penetrating, analytical. Young man, he said in a calm voice, that was quite the display of power. And quite the transformation, too. Ben instinctively covered the Omnitrix with his hand. I don't know what you're talking about. The man smiled slightly. I just watched you change from an energy being back to human form. Rather unusual, even in a world of quirks. Look, I'm a bit lost, Ben admitted, deciding directness might be his best option. Could you tell me exactly where I am? And what's with all the people with powers walking around? What are these quirks everyone keeps mentioning? The man's eyebrows rose. You're in Mizudafu, Japan. And you don't know what quirks are. That's concerning. They're the superpowers that approximately 80% of the world's population possesses. Ben's mind raced. Definitely an alternate Earth then. One where superpowers were commonplace, not the exception. I'm not, from around here, Ben said carefully. Clearly, the man replied. My name is Toshinori Yagi. I'm a teacher at UA High School, the premier hero training academy in Japan. And I think you and I should have a longer conversation. He glanced at the Omnitrix. Particularly about that device on your wrist. Ben weighed his options. In an unfamiliar world, he needed allies, and this man seemed genuinely concerned rather than threatening. Plus, if this was a world of superheroes, maybe they'd have technology that could help him get home. I'm Ben Tennyson, he said finally. And yeah, I think we have a lot to talk about. The UA High School campus was unlike any school Ben had ever seen. Massive modern buildings sprawled across expansive grounds, training facilities visible in the distance. Students in matching uniforms walked between classes, many displaying subtle signs of their quirks, unusual skin colors, extra appendages, or structural abnormalities. This is where you train superheroes? Ben asked as Toshinori led him through the main entrance after a security check that had involved several awkward questions about the Omnitrix. We prefer pro-heroes, but yes, Toshinori replied. UA has produced the greatest heroes in Japan for generations. They entered a conference room where several adults waited. A small animal, dog, bear, mouse, in a suit sat at the head of the table. Beside him was a tired-looking man with long black hair and what appeared to be a scarf made of fabric strips. A woman in a skin-tight outfit completed the trio. This is the young man, the animal spoke, causing Ben to start in surprise. Yes, Principal Nizu, Toshinori confirmed. Ben Tennyson. He appears to possess a transformation ability unlike any quirk I've encountered. I'm not from this dimension, Ben blurted out, deciding honesty was his best approach. I'm from another Earth where superpowered beings are rare. I was fighting a villain when something went wrong with this. He raised his wrist, showing the Omnitrix, and I ended up here. Principal Nizu leaned forward, examining the device with obvious interest. Fascinating. And this device allows you to transform into aliens, Ben explained. Usually about 60 different species. But something's wrong with it now. It gave me a new transformation I've never seen before, but I can't access my usual aliens. The tired-looking man spoke up. Aliens? You expect us to believe that? Aizawa, Toshinori cautioned, I witnessed his transformation. It was unlike any quirk manifestation I've seen. My name is Midnight, the woman introduced herself with a smile that made Ben slightly uncomfortable. What do you mean by aliens? Ben sighed. In my world, I found this device, the Omnitrix, when I was 10. It contains DNA samples from different alien species across the universe and allows me to transform into them temporarily. I've been fighting bad guys with it for years. May we see a demonstration? Principal Nizu asked. Ben checked the Omnitrix. The yellow flashing had stopped, and it glowed a steady green once more. I think it's recharged. I can try, but I'm not sure which alien I'll get. He activated the Omnitrix, surprised to see only one silhouette available, the new form he'd used earlier. He shrugged and pressed down on the dial. The green flash filled the room, and Ben once again felt the surge of energy as he transformed into Chaquetrix. The crystalline exoskeleton containing swirling energy stood nearly 7 feet tall, casting a blue-green glow throughout the conference room. Remarkable, Principal Nizu whispered, circling him. Not a quirk at all. The energy signature is completely different from anything in our database. Aizawa narrowed his eyes, and Ben noticed the strips of his scarf beginning to float. My erasure doesn't work on him. It's not a quirk. Told you, Ben's echoing voice replied. I call this one Chaquetrix. Seems to manipulate and absorb energy. But normally I have way more options. The Omnitrix symbol glowed on his chest. Ben pressed it, and in another flash of green light, he returned to human form. The transformation appears to be regulated by that symbol, Toshinori observed. And you say you're stranded here? Ben nodded. The Omnitrix is acting weird. I think crossing dimensions damaged it somehow. Usually, when this happens, it repairs itself eventually, but until then, I'm stuck. The faculty members exchanged glances. Principal Nizu cleared his throat. Young Tennyson, your situation presents both a problem and an opportunity. A dimensional traveler with unknown technology could attract unwanted attention from villains. For your safety and ours, we need to keep you somewhere secure while you work on returning home. You want to lock me up? Ben tensed. Quite the opposite, Nizu continued. I propose we enroll you temporarily at UA as a transfer student. You'll blend in among other powerful young people, receive training to control your new transformation in this world, and have access to our technological resources to work on a solution. Ben considered the offer. It made sense, hiding in plain sight among other superpowered teens while figuring out how to fix the Omnitrix and get home. I accept, he said finally. But I don't know how long it will take to fix the Omnitrix. Then welcome to UA High, transfer student, Principal Nizu said with a smile that Ben couldn't quite read. We'll place you in Class 1A. They're our most promising first-year students, and also the most capable of handling unexpected situations. Toshinori chuckled. That's putting it mildly. Ben felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. He was going back to high school, in another dimension, with superpowers being the norm rather than the exception. When do I start? He asked. Tomorrow morning, Principal Nizu replied. Aizawa here is Class 1A's homeroom teacher. He'll introduce you. Aizawa did not look thrilled about this arrangement. One more problem child to deal with, he muttered. Until then, you'll stay in our guest quarters, Midnight added. We'll provide you with a uniform and necessary supplies. Ben touched the Omnitrix. Any chance you have tech experts who could help me understand what's wrong with this? Our support department is exceptional, Nizu assured him. I'll arrange for you to meet with Power Loader and his top student. But first, rest. Dimensional travel must be exhausting. As Ben followed Midnight out of the conference room toward the guest quarters, he couldn't help but wonder what he was getting himself into. A school full of superpowered teenagers learning to be heroes, it sounded like something out of a comic book. Then again, his entire life had been pretty much that way since he found the Omnitrix. The next morning arrived too quickly. Ben stared at his reflection in the mirror, adjusting the UA uniform. The Omnitrix stood out starkly against the gray jacket sleeve. At least it's green again, he muttered, noting the device had stopped its yellow flashing entirely. He'd spent half the night trying different combinations, only to discover that Chaquetrix remained his sole available transformation. Whatever had happened during the dimensional jump had locked the Omnitrix somehow. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Toshinori stood there, now in a poorly fitting suit rather than his heroic form from yesterday. Ready for your first day, young Tennyson? Ben nodded, grabbing his school bag. As ready as I'll be. So what's the story we're going with? Transfer student from America with an energy manipulation quirk, Toshinori explained as they walked through UA's hallways. Your paperwork lists you as having trained independently until now. The Omnitrix will be explained as a support item that helps you control your powers. And if anyone sees me transform? Most transformative quirks have physical tells. The flash of light can be attributed to your energy powers. Toshinori paused before adding, but try to be discreet. The fewer questions, the better. They stopped outside a massive door labeled 1A, Ben could hear voices chattering inside. One last thing, Toshinori said quietly. These students have faced real villains already. They're perceptive and battle-hardened. Don't underestimate them. Before Ben could respond, the door slid open revealing Aizawa, looking even more tired than yesterday. "You're late," he stated flatly. "Come in and introduce yourself." The classroom fell silent as Ben followed Aizawa inside. 20 pairs of eyes studied him with varying degrees of interest. It was all Ben could do not to stare back. The diversity of appearances was startling. A girl with pink skin, a boy with a bird's head, someone whose arms seemed to be composed of multiple tentacles, and others with more subtle differences. "This is Ben Tennyson," Aizawa announced in a monotone. "Transfer student from America. He'll be joining Class 1A until further notice. Treat him like any other student." Ben offered a casual wave. "Hey. Nice to meet you all." A hand shot up immediately, a blue-haired boy with glasses. "Sir. What is Tennyson's quirk? As class representative, I should be informed of any special accommodations he might need." Aizawa sighed. "Energy manipulation and transformation. And Ida, he doesn't need a full orientation right now." More hands raised, but Aizawa ignored them. "Tennyson, take the empty seat next to Yaoyorozu. She's the vice representative and can answer your questions during break." Ben followed Aizawa's gesture toward an empty desk beside a tall, elegant girl with a spiky ponytail. Her dark eyes assessed him with obvious intelligence as he made his way over. "Welcome to UA," she said formally as he sat down. "I'm Momo Yaoyorozu. If you have any questions about our curriculum or facilities, I'm happy to assist." "Thanks," Ben replied, noting her perfect posture and articulate speech. "I appreciate it." As Aizawa began the day's lesson, Ben tried to focus, but his attention kept drifting. The Omnitrix felt warm against his wrist, as if reacting to something in this environment. And he could swear that Yaoyorozu was studying him from the corner of her eye, her gaze repeatedly drawn to the device. The morning passed in a blur of introductions and explanations. A friendly boy named Midoriya seemed particularly fascinated by Ben's quirk, while an explosive blonde named Bakugo declared him, probably another extra, before losing interest. By lunchtime, Ben had memorized most of their names but was struggling to keep track of all their powers. "So how does your quirk work exactly?" Kirishima, a red-haired boy with sharp teeth, asked as they headed to the cafeteria. Aizawa-sensei said transformation, but what do you transform into? Ben touched the Omnitrix instinctively. "It's complicated. I can change into an energy form that lets me manipulate and absorb power. That's why you have that support item, right?" Midoriya pointed to the Omnitrix. "To regulate the transformation." "Yeah, exactly," Ben replied, impressed by the boy's perception. "It looks quite sophisticated," Yaoyorozu commented, joining their conversation. "The components must be incredibly complex to contain energy manipulation capabilities." There was something in her tone that made Ben wonder if she suspected the Omnitrix was more than just a support item. Her dark eyes studied it with scientific curiosity. "It's one of a kind," Ben admitted. "Like Yamamo's creation quirk." Ashido, the pink-skinned girl, chimed in. "She can make anything as long as she understands its molecular structure." Ben glanced at Yaoyorozu with new interest. "You can create things." "Like what?" A small smile touched Yaoyorozu's lips. "Anything non-living whose atomic configuration I've studied. Weapons, tools, medical supplies, whatever the situation requires." "That's actually pretty similar to what I can do," Ben said thoughtfully. "I mean, in a way. Changing form to match what's needed." Something passed between them, a moment of recognition, perhaps. Their powers, while manifesting differently, shared a fundamental adaptability that set them apart. The moment was shattered by an alarm blaring throughout the building. Students froze, looking around in confusion. "Level 3 security breach," an automated voice announced. "All students evacuate in an orderly fashion." Chaos erupted as students rushed toward the exits. Ben found himself separated from the others, pushed against a wall by the panicking crowd. "What's happening?" he called to a passing student. "Villain attack," the boy shouted back. "Someone's broken through the UA barrier." Ben's hero instincts kicked in immediately. He pushed against the flow of students, making his way toward a window rather than the exit. Outside, he could see teachers gathering in the courtyard, facing a swirling vortex of dark energy that was growing larger by the second. "That looks like a portal," Ben muttered. His expertise with dimensional travel told him this was no ordinary attack, something was trying to breach between worlds. A hand caught his arm. Yaoyorozu stood beside him, her expression determined rather than frightened. "We should evacuate with the others, Tennyson." "That's not a villain attack," Ben said urgently. "It's some kind of dimensional portal. I've seen things like this before." Yaoyorozu's eyes widened. "How would you know that?" Ben hesitated, then made a decision. "Because that's how I got here. I'm not really a transfer student, I'm from another dimension where I fight aliens. The Omnitrix brought me here by accident." He expected disbelief, maybe even alarm. Instead, Yaoyorozu's expression became thoughtful. "That would explain the unusual energy signature your device emits. I detected it the moment you entered the classroom." "You can sense energy signatures?" "Part of my creation quirk requires sensitivity to molecular and energy states," she explained. "Your Omnitrix, you called it? It's unlike anything I've ever encountered." Before Ben could respond, a tremendous crash shook the building. Through the window, they saw something enormous emerge from the portal, a creature with metallic skin, 4 arms, and a face covered in blinking lights rather than normal features. "What is that?" Yaoyorozu gasped. Ben's blood ran cold. He recognized the species, though he'd never encountered this specific individual. "It's a Tekadon. A robotic alien mercenary. They're sent to hunt down specific targets." As if hearing him, the Tekadon's head swiveled toward the window where they stood. Its chest plate opened to reveal a scanning array that emitted a blue light. The light passed over the building until it reached Ben, then turned red. "Target identified, Omnitrix bearer," a mechanical voice boomed. "Priority Alpha, capture and return." "It's after me," Ben said grimly. "Someone must have tracked me across dimensions." He turned to Yaoyorozu. "Get to safety with the others. This is my fight." Yaoyorozu's expression hardened. "This is UA High School, an attack on one student is an attack on all of us. Besides, I'm a hero in training. I don't run from battles." Ben wanted to argue but recognized the determination in her eyes, the same look he'd seen in Gwen's whenever she insisted on joining his fights. He nodded instead. "Then we need a plan. That thing is tough, but not invincible." He activated the Omnitrix. "I only have one alien form available right now, but it should be enough." "Wait," Yaoyorozu placed a hand on his arm, her expression intense. "Before you transform, if that creature is scanning for your device's energy signature, won't transforming make you an even clearer target?" Ben paused, impressed by her tactical thinking. "You're right. But I can't fight it as a human." "You might not have to," Yaoyorozu said, her hand glowing as she began creating something from her arm. A small metallic sphere emerged, followed by several more. "These are electromagnetic pulse grenades. They might disrupt its systems long enough for the teachers to contain it." Ben grinned. "That's brilliant. But we need to get closer." They made their way down to the ground floor, finding it mostly deserted as students had evacuated to the shelters. Through a side exit, they could see the Tekadon advancing toward the building while the teachers formed a defensive line. "We need to get behind it," Ben whispered. "EMP works best near vital systems, usually at the base of the neck or central power core." Yaoyorozu nodded, creating a small mirror device. "I can use this to check its movement without exposing ourselves." Using the mirror, they tracked the Tekadon's progress, waiting for an opening. The UA teachers were putting up an impressive fight. A hero in a space suit was manipulating gravity around the robot, while another created cement barriers to slow its advance. Now, Ben said as the Tekadon turned to deal with a flanking maneuver from All Might. Circle around while it's distracted. They sprinted across open ground, using debris for cover. Ben felt strangely exhilarated. He was used to working alone or with his cousin and grandpa, but Yaoyorozu moved with practiced efficiency, anticipating his needs before he voiced them. They reached the Tekadon's blind spot. Yaoyorozu handed Ben 2 of the EMP grenades. The neck joint and lower back should be vulnerable points. On 3, Ben whispered. 1, 2. Before he could say 3, the Tekadon spun with unexpected speed. One metallic arm shot out, grabbing Yaoyorozu and lifting her off the ground. Secondary target acquired, it announced. Human possesses unknown creation capabilities. Valuable research specimen. Let her go. Ben shouted, abandoning stealth. He slammed his hand down on the Omnitrix without hesitation. The transformation into Chaquetrix was becoming more familiar now, the rush of energy, the crystalline exoskeleton forming around him, the heightened awareness of power sources nearby. But this time, Ben felt something new, a protective rage that intensified the energy swirling within him. I said, he growled, his voice resonating with power, let her go. He thrust both hands forward, channeling energy into a concentrated beam that struck the Tekadon's arm joint. Metal superheated instantly, circuit sparking as the limb's grip failed. Yaoyorozu dropped to the ground, rolling away with practiced agility. The Tekadon turned its full attention to Ben. Primary target hostile. Activating capture protocols. Weapon ports opened across its body, firing energy nets designed to entangle. Ben created an energy shield instinctively, but the nets were specifically calibrated to pass through energy constructs. One wrapped around him, constricting and sending painful feedback into his Chaquetrix form. Ben! Yaoyorozu called, having created a staff that she used to vault herself closer. She threw one of the EMP grenades with perfect accuracy, striking the Tekadon's exposed neck joint. The pulse disrupted the robot systems momentarily, causing the energy net around Ben to flicker. He seized the opportunity, focusing on absorbing the net's energy rather than fighting against it. The restraint dissolved as he incorporated its power into his own form. That's new, he muttered, feeling the additional energy humming through him. The Tekadon recovered quickly, its systems adapting to the electromagnetic disruption. It raised all 4 arms, transforming them into cannons that began charging with ominous light. Yaoyorozu, get back. Ben called, planting himself between her and the robot. I have a plan, she replied, her uniform glowing as she activated her quirk. Can you absorb energy and redirect it? Yes, but not unlimited amounts. Then get ready to absorb my attack and combine it with yours, she instructed, creating what appeared to be a massive electrical generator strapped to her back. On my mark. The Tekadon fired, 4 energy beams converging toward them. Ben threw up an energy shield, straining against the barrage. Through the transparent barrier, he saw Yaoyorozu connect 2 cables from her generator to metal conductors she'd created in each hand. Now, she shouted, bringing the conductors together. A tremendous surge of electricity erupted from her device, striking Ben's shield. Instead of blocking it, he opened himself to the energy, drawing it in and combining it with the power he'd absorbed from the net. The sensation was overwhelming, like being filled with liquid light. Instinctively, Ben understood what Yaoyorozu intended. He redirected all the combined energy, the Tekadon's attack, her electrical surge, and his own power, into a single devastating counterattack. The resulting beam pierced straight through the Tekadon's central mass. Systems overloaded, metal melted, and the robot crashed backward, a smoking hole where its power core had been. For a moment, silence fell across the battlefield. Then the remains of the Tekadon began to glow with the same energy that had created the original portal. It's going to self-destruct, Ben realized. Everyone get back. He reached for Yaoyorozu, pulling her behind him as he created the strongest energy shield he could manage. The Tekadon imploded rather than exploded, collapsing in on itself with a vacuum effect that threatened to pull them in before dissipating in a flash of light. When the dust settled, only a smoking crater remained where the robot had stood. The dimensional portal had vanished with it. Ben released his shield, the exertion causing the Omnitrix to time out. In a flash of red light, he returned to human form, dropping to one knee in exhaustion. "Are you all right?" Yaoyorozu knelt beside him, concern evident in her voice. "Yeah," Ben managed a tired smile. "Nice teamwork. That was some quick thinking with the generator." "Your energy manipulation was extraordinary," she replied, genuine admiration in her eyes. "No wonder that creature was sent to capture you." Their moment was interrupted as teachers and students surrounded them. Questions came from all directions about what happened, how they defeated the robot, and most persistently, what exactly Ben was. Principal Nizu pushed through the crowd, his expression unreadable. "I believe, young Tennyson, that you owe us a more complete explanation." Ben looked at Yaoyorozu, who nodded encouragingly. "Yes," he agreed, "I do. But first, we need to understand what that Tekadon was after and who sent it. Because I don't think this is over." 2 hours later, Ben sat in UA's conference room again, this time with Yaoyorozu beside him. He'd explained everything, his life as a hero in his dimension, the Omnitrix's true purpose, and his accidental arrival in their world. The UA faculty listened without interruption, their expressions growing more serious with each revelation. "So this device," Principal Nizu gestured to the Omnitrix, "contains the DNA of countless alien species, allowing you to transform into them at will. And normally you'd have access to many forms, but currently you're limited to this Chaquetrix, which you've never encountered before." "That's right," Ben confirmed. "Chaquetrix must be native to this dimension or somewhere connected to it. The Omnitrix scans new DNA automatically when it encounters it. And the robot was after both you and this device," Aizawa stated. "Suggesting someone knows you're here and wants the Omnitrix's power." "Tekadons are mercenaries," Ben explained. "They're sent by clients with specific capture parameters. Someone tracked my dimensional jump and wants either me, the Omnitrix, or both. The question is who," Yaoyorozu said thoughtfully. "And how they knew about Ben's arrival. There aren't many villain organizations in our world with dimensional technology," Toshinori noted. "This suggests a new player or perhaps collaboration with powers from Ben's world." Principal Nizu steepled his paws. "This complicates matters. Ben's presence here isn't merely an accident to be corrected, it's become a potential security crisis." "I should leave," Ben suggested. "Find somewhere isolated to work on fixing the Omnitrix without putting your school at risk." "Absolutely not," Yaoyorozu said firmly, surprising everyone with her vehemence. "Isolating you would make you more vulnerable, not less. Here, you have protection and resources." Principal Nizu nodded. "Miss Yaoyorozu is correct. Furthermore, your knowledge of these extradimensional threats makes you an asset we cannot afford to lose." "Then what do you suggest?" Ben asked. "You remain at UA as planned," Nizu decided. "But we accelerate your training to help you master this new form. And we assign you a student partner who can assist with both your adjustment and protection." All eyes turned to Yaoyorozu, who straightened in her chair. "I volunteer, sir. My creation quirk has already proven compatible with Ben's energy manipulation. And I'm top of the class in technical knowledge." "It's settled then," Nizu declared. "Ben Tennyson will continue as a student of Class 1A, with special training sessions focused on his unique abilities. Momo Yaoyorozu will serve as his official partner for the duration of his stay." Ben looked at Yaoyorozu, Momo, he supposed he should call her now, and found her already watching him with determined eyes that held something more than just professional interest. "Thanks," he said quietly. "For believing me. And for the help with the Tekadon." I should be thanking you, she replied. That was the most scientifically fascinating battle I've ever experienced. A small smile formed on her lips. I've created many things, but I've never had the chance to apply my quirk in conjunction with extradimensional energy manipulation before. There was an excited gleam in her eye that reminded Ben of when he'd first discovered the Omnitrix, that mixture of wonder and possibility. Despite the danger of his situation, he couldn't help returning her smile. Something tells me we're going to make a good team, he said. I believe we already have, she answered. As the meeting concluded and they were dismissed to return to the dormitories, Ben had been assigned emergency housing in the 1A building. He found himself walking beside Momo through the UA campus under the setting sun. The Omnitrix felt warmer than usual against his skin, as if responding to some subtle energy he couldn't identify. So, Momo broke the comfortable silence. Tell me about your world. What's it like being one of the few heroes instead of one of many? Ben considered the question. Lonely sometimes. Amazing other times. I guess I've never really thought about it that way, being special because powers are rare. And here you're special because your powers are different, she observed. It seems you're destined to stand out, Ben Tennyson. He laughed. I don't know about destiny. Mostly I just try to do the right thing with what I've got. Momo nodded approvingly. That's what makes a true hero, dimensional traveler or not. She paused before adding, I look forward to learning more about your Omnitrix. The scientific principles must be extraordinary. I'll teach you what I know if you'll teach me about quirks, Ben offered. Seems like I'll need to understand them better if I'm going to blend in here. It's a deal, Momo agreed, extending her hand formally. As their hands met, the Omnitrix flashed briefly, a subtle pulse of green that passed between them. Neither commented on it, but both noticed, a shared secret that marked the beginning of something neither could yet define. Above them, stars began appearing in the darkening sky, the same stars Ben had known in his world, yet somehow different here. Somewhere among them was home, but for now, this strange world of heroes and quirks would have to do. And somehow, with Momo Yaoyorozu as his guide, that didn't seem so bad at all. Chapter 2, Power and Creation. The early morning sun filtered through the training ground's massive windows, casting long shadows across the reinforced floor. Ben rolled his shoulders, trying to work out the stiffness from his first week at UA. 7 days since the Tekadon attack, 7 days of trying to adapt to this world of heroes in training. 7 days of working with Momo Yaoyorozu. Are you ready to begin? Momo asked, setting down her notebook. She'd been documenting everything about his transformations with scientific precision, energy outputs, physical changes, reaction times. As ready as I'll ever be, Ben replied, checking the Omnitrix. Still limited to just Chaquetrix, but at least it was stable. What's the plan today? Momo produced a small device from her palm. Her creation quirk never ceased to amaze him, the way objects simply emerged from her skin in a flash of light. This is an energy calibrator I designed based on our previous sessions, she explained, her dark eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. It should help you visualize the energy flow within Chaquetrix's form, allowing for more precise control. Ben smiled. Momo approached everything with the same methodical brilliance, breaking down complex problems into solvable components. It was like working with a combination of Gwen's intelligence and Grandpa Max's practical experience. Let's do it then. He activated the Omnitrix, selecting the only available alien. The familiar green flash enveloped him, and seconds later Chaquetrix stood where Ben had been, 7 feet of crystalline exoskeleton containing swirling energy. Momo approached without hesitation, attaching the calibrator to the crystal structure near what would be his collarbone. The device immediately lit up, projecting a holographic display showing energy currents flowing through his form. Fascinating, she murmured, studying the readout. The energy doesn't just move through you, it's in constant flux between potential and kinetic states. She looked up, meeting his glowing eyes. Try channeling power to your right hand, but slowly. Ben concentrated, directing the energy as instructed. On the holographic display, they both watched as currents shifted, blue light flowing toward his hand. Now maintain that concentration while creating a small energy sphere, Momo instructed. An orb of condensed power formed above his palm, humming with contained force. The display showed energy being drawn from throughout his body to maintain the sphere. That's why you've been exhausting so quickly, Momo realized. You're drawing from your entire energy reserve rather than cycling it. Try circulating the energy instead, make it flow in a loop from your core to your hand and back. Ben followed her guidance, visualizing the pattern. The difference was immediate, the sphere remained stable, but the drain on his system decreased significantly. It's working. He couldn't keep the excitement from his echoing voice. I could maintain this for hours now. Momo's smile was radiant. Excellent. Now let's try something more complex. Can you form multiple constructs simultaneously while maintaining the circulation pattern? For the next 2 hours, they worked through increasingly complex exercises. Ben created shields while firing energy beams, formed tethers that could absorb and redirect power, even discovered he could temporarily infuse objects with energy to make them conduct his abilities. When the Omnitrix finally timed out, Ben collapsed onto a bench, exhilarated despite his fatigue. That was incredible, he said as Momo handed him a water bottle she'd created. I've never had this kind of control with a new alien before. Your adaptation rate is remarkable, she replied, sitting beside him. Most quirk users take months to develop the techniques you've mastered in a week. That's because I have an excellent teacher. The compliment came naturally, and Ben was rewarded with a slight blush on Momo's cheeks. I merely applied scientific principles to your innate abilities, she demurred, though her pleased expression betrayed her pride. Besides, working with extradimensional energy is fascinating research. I've already drafted 3 papers on theoretical applications. Ben laughed. Of course you have. Back in my dimension, my cousin Gwen would love you. She's into the scientific side of things too. You miss them, don't you? Momo asked quietly. Your family? The question sobered him. Yeah. My parents, Grandpa Max, Gwen, even Kevin, though I'd never admit that to his face. He touched the Omnitrix unconsciously. They must be worried sick. Time might flow differently between dimensions, but they've got to have noticed I'm gone by now. Momo rested a hand lightly on his arm. We'll find a way to get you home, Ben. Between UA's resources and your Omnitrix, a solution exists. We just need to discover it. The warmth of her touch and the quiet confidence in her voice settled something in Ben's chest. She hadn't said, if, they could get him home, but, when, as if it were merely a problem awaiting solution rather than an impossibility. Thanks, Momo. He covered her hand with his own briefly. For everything. A comfortable silence fell between them, interrupted when the training ground doors slid open. Aizawa entered, followed by a short, elderly woman. Tennyson, Yaoyorozu, Aizawa nodded. This is Recovery Girl. She's been analyzing the data from your training sessions. Recovery Girl approached, scrutinizing Ben with professional interest. Interesting energy patterns, young man. Not quite like anything I've seen in my decades of quirk research. That's because it's not a quirk, Ben explained, having grown accustomed to repeating this fact. Yes, alien DNA, dimensional travel, I've read the briefing. She waved dismissively. What concerns me is the strain on your cellular structure during transformation. The energy saturation levels are dangerously high. Ben frowned. What does that mean? It means, Recovery Girl said bluntly, that prolonged use of this Chaquetrix form could potentially destabilize your human DNA. Your body is adapting, but not quickly enough. Momo straightened. I suspected as much. The calibrator readings showed microfractures in the crystal matrix after extended use. Is it dangerous? Ben asked, looking between them. Not immediately, Recovery Girl assured him. But I'm implementing a new protocol. No transformations exceeding 15 minutes until we better understand the physiological impacts. But we were just making progress, no arguments, Aizawa cut in. Safety protocols exist for a reason, Tennyson. Even All Might had limits to his transformation time. Ben wanted to protest but thought better of it. In his experience, medical professionals and teachers formed an unbeatable alliance when it came to restrictions. Fine, he conceded. 15-minute sessions. But we need to accelerate our research into fixing the Omnitrix. If I can access my other aliens, I might find one that can help solve this problem. The support department is working on it, Aizawa said. Power Loader and his student Hatsum have requested you visit their workshop after classes today. As Aizawa and Recovery Girl left with additional instructions about monitoring protocols, Ben turned to Momo. Looks like our training sessions just got more complicated. On the contrary, Momo replied thoughtfully. Working within constraints often produces the most innovative solutions. If we can't extend your transformation time, we'll maximize efficiency instead. How do we do that? Momo's eyes lit with the spark that Ben had come to recognize as her problem-solving mode. By combining our abilities more effectively. My creation quirk can produce devices that amplify, store, or redirect energy. If your Chaquetrix form can charge these devices, then I could transform, charge your creations, and return to human form while still maintaining combat effectiveness through your technology, Ben finished, catching her vision. That's brilliant. Purely theoretical at this stage, Momo cautioned, though she was already scribbling designs in her notebook. We'll need to test compatibility factors, energy transfer coefficients. Momo, Ben interrupted gently, you're doing that thing again where you get lost in the details. She looked up, blinking. Am I? Sorry, I tend to, don't apologize. It's one of your best qualities. The words slipped out before Ben could consider them, and he hurried to add, I mean, your thoroughness. It's impressive. A soft smile curved Momo's lips. Thank you. Most people find it tedious. Most people don't appreciate genius when they see it, Ben countered, earning another blush. The training ground doors opened again, this time admitting a group of their classmates. Midoriya, Uraraka, and Todoroki entered, dressed for their own training session. Oh. We didn't realize anyone was still here, Uraraka said cheerfully. We booked the room for special move practice. We were just finishing, Momo assured her, gathering her notes. How has everyone been adjusting to the new security protocols? Since the Tekadon attack, UA had implemented heightened measures throughout the campus. Students traveled in groups, exterior patrols had doubled, and emergency response drills occurred daily. It's like after the USJ incident, Midoriya remarked, his expression serious. Everyone's on edge again. Todoroki, his face impassive as always, fixed his heterochromatic gaze on Ben. That robot was after you specifically, wasn't it, Tennyson? Ben had been advised to maintain his cover story with most students, but he sensed Todoroki wasn't someone easily fooled by half-truths. Yeah, it was, he admitted. I'm sorry for bringing trouble to your school. Don't apologize for something beyond your control, Todoroki replied, his tone neutral but not unkind. We're training to be heroes. Facing danger is part of the path we've chosen. Besides, Midoriya added enthusiastically, the way you and Yaoyorozu took it down was amazing. That combination attack was like nothing I've ever seen. Oh. We should totally see you two spar sometime, Uraraka suggested. Your quirks seem really compatible. Momo and Ben exchanged glances. Perhaps after we've refined our techniques further, Momo said diplomatically. We're still in the experimental stage. As they left the training ground, Ben noticed Midoriya watching him with that intensely analytical expression he often wore when studying quirks. Is there something on your mind, Midoriya? He asked. The green-haired boy startled slightly. Oh. Sorry for staring. It's just, Your energy manipulation is fascinating. The way it interacts with physical matter reminds me of certain aspects of my own quirk, and I was wondering if there might be applications I haven't considered. Your quirk is super strength, right? Ben recalled from class discussions. It's complicated, Midoriya replied with a nervous laugh. But yes, power enhancement is part of it. Maybe we could train together sometime, Ben offered. Compare notes. Midoriya's face lit up. Really? That would be incredible. I have so many questions about energy conversion efficiency and the theoretical limits of power storage within biological systems. And there he goes, Uraraka giggled as Midoriya launched into a detailed monologue about quirk theory. Once Deku gets started on quirk analysis, he's unstoppable. Ben smiled, reminded again of Gwen's enthusiastic deep dives into magical theory. Maybe this world wasn't so different from his own after all. The support department workshop resembled a cross between a high-tech laboratory and a mechanic's garage that had exploded. Parts, tools, and half-finished inventions covered every surface, while holographic blueprints flickered in the air. Watch your step, Momo cautioned as they navigated the cluttered space. Hatsume's inventions have been known to activate unexpectedly. Visitors. A pink-haired girl with peculiar crosshair pupils popped up from behind a workbench, goggles pushed up onto her forehead. Are you my new test subjects? I mean, clients. Hatsume, power loader, a pro hero with a distinctive excavator-like helmet, sighed from across the room. We discussed appropriate terminology. Right, Hatsume amended without losing her manic enthusiasm. Welcome to the support department. You must be Tennyson with the mysterious device. Let me see it. She bounded over, invading Ben's personal space to examine the Omnitrix. Hi, Ben managed, taking an instinctive step back. Yeah, I'm Ben. This is the Omnitrix. Hatsume's eyes gleamed behind her goggles. Oh, biomechanical interface with interdimensional properties. The energy signature is unlike anything in our current tech database. The integration with your epidermal layer suggests a symbiotic relationship rather than mere attachment. This is so exciting. Hatsume, power loader warned again. Professional distance, remember? She reluctantly backed up 3 inches. Sorry, sir. But just look at those microcircuitry patterns. And the adaptive housing that responds to the wearer's biometrics. Ben glanced at Momo, who seemed amused by his discomfort. Is she always like this? Mei Hatsume is UA's most brilliant support equipment developer, Momo explained diplomatically. Her enthusiasm is proportional to her talent. Which is considerable, power loader added, joining them. We've been analyzing the energy readings from your training sessions, Tennyson. The Omnitrix's properties are remarkable. He activated a holographic display showing detailed scans of the device in various states, dormant, active, and during transformation. The internal mechanisms appear to utilize quantum entanglement principles, power loader explained. Suggesting the DNA samples aren't actually stored within the device itself, but rather accessed through a dimensional pocket. That tracks with what Azimuth told me, Ben confirmed. The creator, he added, seeing their questioning looks. He said the Omnitrix connects to Primus, a planet that contains the DNA database. A whole planet as a server. Hatsume exclaimed, scribbling notes frantically. The bandwidth requirements alone would be astronomical. The power source must be, power loader interrupted. Focus on the current problem. Right. The connection interruption. She spun toward another workbench and returned with what looked like a modified scanner. We think your Omnitrix lost connection to this Primus place during the dimensional jump. That's why you can only access the new alien DNA it scanned in our world. Chaquetrix, Ben supplied. Exactly. So we've developed this. She thrust the device toward him. The Interdimensional Frequency Analyzer and Booster. Or IFAB for short. What does it do? Momo asked, examining the device with professional interest. It might, emphasis on might, help identify the specific dimensional frequency your device needs to reconnect with its database, Power Loader explained more precisely. Think of it as a signal booster attempting to find the right channel. Ben's hopes rose. So it could help me access my other alien forms? Possibly, Power Loader cautioned. Or it might just give us more data on why the connection failed. Either way, it's a starting point. I'll take it, Ben said firmly. After a week of being limited to Chaquetrix, impressive as the form was, he missed the versatility of his usual roster. Excellent. Hatsum clapped her hands. We'll need you to transform repeatedly while wearing the IFAB so it can analyze the energetic properties during the change. Recovery Girl limited his transformation time, Momo interjected. 15 minutes maximum per session, with adequate recovery periods. Hatsum waved dismissively. Details, details. Science requires sacrifice. Science requires safety protocols, Power Loader corrected firmly. We'll work within medical guidelines. 15-minute sessions with monitoring. As they prepared the equipment, Ben noticed Momo studying the holographic displays with intense focus. You're thinking something, he observed quietly. She nodded, keeping her voice low. The dimensional frequency analysis might help with more than just reconnecting the Omnitrix. If we can identify your home dimension's unique signature, we might be able to create a way back, Ben finished, understanding immediately. A controlled portal. It's theoretical, she cautioned. But worth exploring. The possibility of a way home should have filled Ben with unalloyed joy. Instead, he felt a complicated mix of hope and something else. He glanced at Momo, her elegant profile illuminated by the blue light of the holographic displays, and recognized the complication for what it was. In just a week, Momo Yaoyorozu had become important to him in ways he hadn't anticipated. The prospect of leaving stirred a reluctance he wasn't ready to examine too closely. Tennyson. We're ready when you are, Power Loader called, interrupting his thoughts. Ben pushed his conflicted feelings aside. One step at a time. First, fix the Omnitrix. Then figure out the rest. Let's do this, he said, stepping onto the monitoring platform where Hatsum waited with barely contained excitement. 3 hours and 7 transformations later, Ben sat exhausted in the UA cafeteria, a tray of food untouched before him. The IFAB had collected mountains of data but produced no immediate solutions. The Omnitrix remained limited to Chaquetrix, though Power Loader seemed optimistic about the preliminary findings. You should eat, Momo advised, sliding into the seat across from him. Energy transformation depletes your glucose levels significantly. Ben managed a tired smile. Now you sound like my cousin. Gwen's always on my case about proper nutrition after using the Omnitrix. Your cousin sounds sensible, Momo replied, opening a protein bar she'd apparently created on the spot. The body needs fuel to recover, especially after the strain yours has undergone today. Ben picked up his fork obediently. Yes, ma'am. As they ate, Ben noticed several of their classmates watching them with poorly concealed interest. Ashido and Hagakure, in particular, kept glancing over and whispering. We've become subjects of gossip, Momo observed quietly, following his gaze. Is it because we spend so much time training together? Ben asked. A slight flush colored Momo's cheeks. That, and perhaps the fact that we work unusually well as a team. It's generated speculation. About us? Ben clarified, feeling his own face warm. About whether we might be, more than training partners, she confirmed, her usual composure slightly frayed. I've assured them our relationship is purely professional, of course. Of course, Ben echoed, ignoring a twinge of disappointment. What had he expected? They were from different dimensions, literally. Any attachment beyond friendship would be complicated at best, impossible at worst. Momo studied him for a moment. Does that bother you? No, it makes sense, Ben replied quickly. Too quickly, perhaps. We've got more important things to focus on than high school gossip. Something flickered in Momo's eyes, relief. Disappointment? Ben couldn't tell. Before he could analyze it further, their conversation was interrupted by Midoriya, who approached with a tablet in hand. Sorry to interrupt, he said earnestly, but I've been researching energy manipulation quirks similar to yours, Ben, and found something interesting. He placed the tablet on the table, displaying a news article about an incident in Hosu City. This happened yesterday. Witnesses described a villain with glowing crystal-like skin, who absorbed electrical power from the city grid. Ben and Momo exchanged alarmed glances. That sounds like Chaquetrix, Ben confirmed, examining the blurry image accompanying the article. Or something very similar. I thought it might be connected to you somehow, Midoriya continued. Especially since the energy signature matches what our sensors detected during your transformation. This is concerning, Momo said, her analytical mind visibly working through implications. If another being with similar powers exists, then maybe the Omnitrix didn't just scan random DNA when I arrived, Ben theorized. Maybe it detected this specific alien species already present in your dimension. Midoriya's eyes widened. Which means there could be actual aliens living among us, disguised as people with quirks. We should report this to Aizawa-sensei immediately, Momo decided, standing up. If there's a connection between this villain and the Tekadon attack, UA needs to know. Ben nodded, pushing away his half-eaten meal. The brief respite was over, trouble had found him again, as it always did. Principal Nizu's office felt smaller with so many people present. Aizawa, All Might in his diminished form, Ben, Momo, and Midoriya had gathered to discuss the Hosu incident, while the principal himself perched on his desk, contemplative. This confirms our suspicions, Nizu said after reviewing Midoriya's findings. The Tekadon wasn't random, someone in our world knows about your arrival, young Tennyson, and possibly about your Omnitrix. But how? All Might questioned. Interdimensional travel should be beyond our current technology. Not necessarily, Momo interjected. There are several research groups investigating dimensional theory. Dr. Ujiko's work on quantum tunneling, for instance, or the Todoroki Foundation studies on energy transference between parallel spaces. All eyes turned to her. What? She asked, slightly defensive. I read scientific journals in my spare time. Yaoyorozu's right, Aizawa said. There are entities in our world with the resources and motivation to explore such technologies. The question is which of them detected Tennyson's arrival and why they want the Omnitrix. For power, Ben stated flatly. It's always for power. The Omnitrix contains DNA from the most formidable species in my universe. In the wrong hands, it could create an unstoppable army. Or enhance existing quirks beyond their natural limitations, Nizu added thoughtfully. Imagine a villain like All for One with access to alien DNA. A tense silence followed the name, one Ben didn't recognize but clearly held significance for everyone else. What do we do now? Midoriya asked, breaking the silence. We investigate, Aizawa decided. I'll coordinate with the Hosu city authorities about the crystal being. Meanwhile, Tennyson and Yaoyorozu will continue their training with increased security. And I'll accelerate my analysis of the dimensional frequency data, Momo added. If we can identify the source of the interdimensional monitoring, we might discover who's behind this. As the meeting concluded, Ben found himself walking through UA's corridors beside Momo, both lost in thought. The setting sun cast long shadows through the windows, painting the hallways in amber light. This complicates things, Ben finally said. If there are other Chaquetrix-like beings here, the Omnitrix might be responding to their presence rather than malfunctioning. Which means fixing it might require understanding them first, Momo concluded. The question is how to find this crystal being without endangering ourselves or others. They reached the dormitory building, pausing in the common area where several of their classmates were engaged in various evening activities, Kaminari and Siro playing video games, Azui and Urarika studying, Todoroki reading quietly in the corner. "We should rest," Momo suggested. "Tomorrow's training will be demanding, especially with the new constraints on your transformation time." Ben nodded, though rest seemed unlikely with his mind racing through theories and contingencies. "You're right. Thanks again, Momo. For everything." "We're partners now," she replied simply. "Your problems are mine to solve as well." The declaration, matter-of-fact as it was, carried a weight that settled in Ben's chest with unexpected warmth. In his world, he often carried the burden of heroism alone, even with Gwen and Kevin's support. Here, Momo approached their challenges as truly shared responsibility, not helping him with his problem, but accepting it as theirs together. "Good night, Ben," she said, turning toward the girl's wing. "Good night, Momo," he replied, watching her go before heading to his own temporary room. Later, lying awake in bed, Ben stared at the Omnitrix, its green glow providing the only light in the darkness. Whatever was happening, whatever connection existed between his arrival, this crystal being, and the forces hunting him, he knew one thing for certain: this world was becoming less strange and more significant by the day. And so was Momo Yaoyorozu. The following morning dawned gray and rainy, matching the mood in Class 1A as Aizawa delivered unsettling news. "There was another incident involving the crystal entity last night," he announced, his voice grave. "A research facility in Tokyo was attacked. Several scientists were injured, and experimental equipment was stolen." Murmurs rippled through the classroom. Ben felt Momo tense beside him. "What kind of equipment?" she asked, her analytical mind immediately seeking patterns. "Particle accelerator components," Aizawa replied. "Specifically designed for quantum barrier research." "Dimensional technology," Momo whispered to Ben. "They're building something to access other dimensions." "Or prevent access," Ben countered, thinking of the Tekadon's arrival. "Maybe they're trying to close the pathway I came through." Aizawa continued, "As a result, all off-campus activities are suspended until further notice. Training will continue under heightened security protocols." The announcement drew groans from several students who had been planning weekend excursions, but Ben hardly noticed. His mind was racing through implications, trying to connect the dots between his arrival, the crystal being's attacks, and the stolen technology. As class began, a notification appeared on his student tablet, a message from Hatsum, BRAKTHRUGH. "Bring the magic wristwatch to the workshop immediately. Or when class ends. Preferably immediately. Power Loader says after class is fine but he's wrong." Ben showed the message to Momo, whose eyebrows rose. "It seems Hatsum has discovered something," she whispered. "Should we be optimistic? With Hatsum?" "I'm not sure if I should be optimistic or concerned," Ben replied, remembering the support students' manic energy. The morning classes crawled by, each minute stretching as Ben's anticipation grew. When lunch finally arrived, he and Momo headed straight for the support department, finding Hatsum practically vibrating with excitement amid an even more chaotic workshop than before. "There you are," she exclaimed, pulling Ben toward a complex apparatus wired to multiple screens. "I've been analyzing the IFAB data all night and made an amazing discovery." "Did you sleep at all?" Momo asked, concerned. "Sleep is for people without breakthrough ideas," Hatsum declared, gesturing wildly at the screens. "Look at these frequency patterns from the Omnitrix. They're not random at all, they're searching." "Searching?" Ben examined the oscillating patterns. "For what?" "For similar energy signatures," Hatsum explained, eyes wide behind her goggles. "Your device isn't broken, it's in discovery mode. It's actively scanning our dimension for compatible DNA sources. Like the crystal being that's been attacking facilities," Momo realized. "Exactly." Hatsum spun to face them. The Omnitrix is detecting another of its kind and trying to establish a connection. That's why it locked onto the Chaquetrix DNA, it's using that as a beacon. Ben's mind raced through the implications. So if this crystal being is somehow related to Chaquetrix, then it might help restore the Omnitrix's full functionality, Momo concluded. But that presents a problem. This entity is dangerous, possibly villainous. Details. Hatsum waved dismissively. The important part is that I've modified the IFAB to function as a tracking device. It can now detect energy signatures matching Chaquetrix within a 20-kilometer radius. She proudly presented what looked like a bulky wristband. Put this on your non-Omnitrix arm, and you'll be able to locate any similar energy patterns. Ben took the device cautiously. This could help us find the crystal being before it attacks again. It could also lead us into a trap, Momo cautioned. If this entity is connected to whoever sent the Tekidon, they might be using it to lure you out. Either way, we need more information, Ben decided, strapping the IFAB tracker to his left wrist. Better to be proactive than reactive. Hatsum beamed. That's the spirit. Now go find that energy being so I can study it. For science. As they left the support department, the tracker remained quiet, its display showing no nearby matches for Chaquetrix's energy signature. We should inform Aizawa-sensei about this development, Momo suggested as they walked toward the cafeteria. Agreed, but after we have something concrete to report, Ben replied. Right now, all we have is a theory and an untested tracking device. Momo frowned slightly. Ben, we can't pursue this independently. If this crystal being is connected to whoever sent the Tekidon, I know, he interrupted, understanding her concern. I'm not suggesting we go after it alone. But let's at least see if the tracker works before involving everyone. If it doesn't detect anything, there's nothing to report anyway. She seemed unconvinced but nodded reluctantly. Very well. But we set strict parameters. If the tracker detects something, we inform the teachers immediately. No exceptions. Deal, Ben agreed, knowing she was right. His tendency to act independently had gotten him into trouble before. They had just entered the cafeteria when the IFAB tracker emitted a sharp beep. Both froze, staring at the device as its display illuminated, showing a pulsing energy signature approximately 15 kilometers away. That's, in downtown Muzutafu, Momo observed, checking the coordinates. Near the harbor district, Ben added, familiar with the city map from his studies. Industrial area. They exchanged glances, the unspoken question hanging between them. Before either could voice it, their student phones chimed simultaneously with an emergency alert, attention all students, villain attack in progress at Muzutafu Harbor. Pro heroes responding. Remain on campus. This is not a drill. The cafeteria erupted in chatter as other students received the same alert. Screens around the room switched to news coverage showing a familiar crystalline figure absorbing energy from industrial equipment while police established a perimeter. It's them, Ben whispered, watching the crystal being demolish a warehouse door. And the tracker works. Momo was already moving. We need to find Aizawa-sensei or All Might immediately. They hurried through the corridors, eventually locating Aizawa in the faculty office, already donning his hero costume. Sensei, Momo called, we have relevant information about the harbor attack. Aizawa looked up sharply. Explain. Quickly. Ben showed him the tracker. The support department created this to detect energy signatures matching my Chaquetrix form. It activated just before the alert came in. The Omnitrix seems to be searching for this crystal being, Momo added. We believe they're connected, possibly the same species. Aizawa processed this information with characteristic efficiency. That explains the timing of these attacks. It's not coincidence, they've been occurring since your arrival. He secured his capture weapon around his neck. Both of you remain on campus. I'll relay this information to the response team. Sir, Ben interjected, I might be able to help. If this being is connected to Chaquetrix, I could communicate with it, maybe even reason with it. Absolutely not, Aizawa's response was immediate. This is an active villain situation, not a training exercise. You're students, not licensed heroes. But, Ben began. No arguments, Tennyson. Your presence could escalate the situation, especially if this entity is specifically linked to you or the Omnitrix. Aizawa moved toward the door. Return to the dormitories with the other students and await further instructions. As he departed, Ben turned to Momo, frustration evident in his expression. We can't just sit back and do nothing. That thing might have answers about why I'm here and how to fix the Omnitrix. I understand your frustration, Momo replied, her voice measured. But Aizawa-sensei is right. Confronting an unknown entity without proper backup would be reckless. Ben paced the empty office. I've been handling situations like this since I was 10 years old. In my world, I'm the one people call when things get weird. This isn't your world, Momo reminded him gently. Here, there are protocols, systems in place. Heroes work within these frameworks too. The tracker beeped again, interrupting her. Both looked down as the display changed, showing not one but two energy signatures now, the original at the harbor and a second one. That's on campus, Ben realized, staring at the coordinates. In the East Forest. Momo's expression shifted from confusion to alarm. The training grounds. Why would, the building shook suddenly, a distant explosion sending vibrations through the floor. Emergency lights activated as the school's defense systems engaged automatically. That wasn't at the harbor, Ben stated, already moving toward the windows. In the distance, smoke rose from the forest area on UA's expansive grounds. A diversion, Momo realized. The harbor attack was meant to draw away the teachers and pro-heroes. Ben activated the Omnitrix. While something else sneaks into UA. Something that gives off the same energy signature as Chaquetrix. Before Momo could respond, their student phones chimed with another alert, security breach in East Training Forest. All students evacuate to designated shelters immediately. We need to help, Ben said, determination hardening his voice. Whatever's out there, it's connected to me somehow. I can't hide while others face danger because of my presence. Momo studied him for a long moment, internal conflict visible in her dark eyes. Then, reaching a decision, she nodded. You're right. But we do this intelligently. She activated her quirk, creating a compact communication device. I'll alert our classmates about the energy signature connection. We'll coordinate rather than charging in blindly. Ben smiled, a wave of gratitude washing over him. Thanks for understanding. Don't thank me yet, she replied, already sending messages to their classmates. Aizawa-sensei will likely put us on house arrest for a month after this. Together, they rushed from the faculty building toward the East Forest, the tracker's signal growing stronger with each step. Other students were moving in the opposite direction, evacuating toward the shelters. Midoriya and Todoroki are already in the area, Momo reported, checking her communicator. Bakugo and Kirishima are heading there as well. Of course they are, Ben muttered, unsurprised that those particular students would move toward danger rather than away from it. They reached the forest edge, where smoke billowed between the trees. The tracker now pulsed rapidly, indicating they were close to the second energy signature. Ready? Ben asked, finger hovering over the Omnitrix. Momo nodded, her own hands glowing as she prepared her quirk. Stay within the 15-minute limit. I'll monitor your time. Got it. Ben slammed his hand down on the Omnitrix. The familiar green flash enveloped him, and moments later Chaquetrix stood where Ben had been. The crystalline exoskeleton glowed with internal energy, casting eerie shadows through the smoke-filled forest. They advanced cautiously, following the tracker's signal deeper into the woods. The training area came into view, or what remained of it. Equipment lay scattered and broken, trees had been uprooted, and a large crater marred the center of the clearing. In the middle of the destruction stood a figure that made Ben freeze in shock. It resembled Chaquetrix in basic structure, crystalline exoskeleton containing energy, but where Ben's form glowed blue-green, this being pulsed with angry red light. Its crystals were jagged rather than smooth, and its proportions seemed somehow wrong, as though the form were unstable or incomplete. "What is that?" Momo whispered. "It looks like your transformation, but..." "Corrupted," Ben finished. "Like a failed copy." The being turned toward them, sensing their presence. It had no visible eyes, yet Ben felt its attention fix on him with palpable intensity. The red energy within its form swirled violently, crackling with uncontrolled power. "Found you," it said, its voice a distorted, painful approximation of speech. "Omnitrix bearer." Ben stepped forward, positioning himself between the creature and Momo. "Who are you? What do you want?" "Want?" The being tilted its head, crystals grinding against each other with the movement. "Want what you have. Want to be complete." It raised a jagged hand, red energy gathering in its palm. "Give it to me. The perfect form. The true transformation." Ben understood with sudden clarity. "You're trying to become Chaquetrix. But something's wrong, your transformation is unstable." "Yes," the creature hissed. "Incomplete data. Imperfect sample. Need original. Need Omnitrix." "Ben," Momo whispered urgently, "it must be someone who acquired partial Chaquetrix DNA but can't stabilize the transformation without the Omnitrix's complete genetic sequence." "Which means they're not naturally this species," Ben realized. "They're a human using stolen or incomplete alien DNA." The creature grew agitated, red energy sparking erratically from its form. "Talk too much," it roared, unleashing a blast of chaotic energy toward them. Ben reacted instantly, creating an energy shield that absorbed the attack. The power surged through his crystalline structure, momentarily overwhelming his control systems. "That's not regular energy," he gasped, his voice distorted. "It's corrupted somehow." Momo touched his arm, her expression concerned. "Your structure is fluctuating. Don't absorb any more of its power, it's destabilizing your form." Before Ben could respond, the clearing erupted in ice, Todoroki's quirk creating a barrier between them and the crystal being. Midoriya and the others arrived, taking positions around the perimeter. "What is that thing?" Bakugo demanded, small explosions popping from his palms in preparation for combat. "Some kind of failed transformation," Ben explained quickly. "It's after the Omnitrix, trying to perfect its unstable form. We need to contain it without destruction," Momo instructed. "It appears to be someone using corrupted DNA, possibly a victim rather than a villain." The crystal being roared in frustration, smashing through Todoroki's ice barrier with terrifying strength. "Give me the Omnitrix," it bellowed, charging toward Ben. Midoriya intercepted, green lightning crackling around his body as he delivered a powerful punch that staggered the creature. "Everyone, coordinate. Contain, don't destroy." What followed was a display of teamwork that impressed even Ben, who had fought alongside the plumbers and Avengers in his own world. The UA students moved with practiced precision, Todoroki creating ice barriers to direct the creature's movement, Bakugo using calculated explosions to disorient it, Kirishima absorbing impacts when necessary. Ben joined their efforts, using Chaquetrix's abilities more strategically than ever before. Rather than absorbing the creature's corrupted energy, he focused on creating constructs to help contain it, energy tethers, shields, and barriers that supplemented his classmates' quirks. Beside him, Momo was a wellspring of innovation. She created specialized equipment in rapid succession, insulated restraints, energy-dampening devices, even a temporary containment field generator. Each creation perfectly complemented their battle strategy, filling gaps before they even appeared. "Its structure is weakening," Momo called out after several minutes of coordinated assault. "The transformation is becoming unstable." She was right. The crystal being's form was deteriorating, red energy leaking from widening cracks in its exoskeleton. Its movements became erratic, desperate. We need to end this now, Ben decided. Before it completely destabilizes. What happens if it does? Midoriya asked, dodging an energy blast. Unknown, Momo replied, but the energy readings suggest a potentially catastrophic release of power. Ben had seen enough unstable transformations to know how dangerous they could be. I have an idea, but I need everyone to give me some space. The others pulled back as Ben approached the deteriorating creature. Its energy fluctuations had become violent, threatening to rupture its crystalline housing entirely. Listen to me, Ben called to it. Your transformation is failing. Let me help stabilize you. The creature paused, its rage momentarily suspended by self-preservation. How? It demanded. Need. Omnitrix. Not the whole device, Ben countered. Just a stabilization pattern. I can project one that might help you maintain form long enough to safely revert to human. Can you really do that? Momo asked quietly behind him. Theoretically, Ben replied. Azimuth built stabilization protocols into the Omnitrix to prevent exactly this kind of transformation failure. He focused on the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, the control center for his transformation. During his training with Momo, he'd learned to access deeper functions, including emergency stabilization patterns designed for disasters. Let me try to help you, he called again to the creature. Or you'll destabilize completely within minutes. The being seemed to consider, its chaotic movements slowing. Help, me. Ben approached cautiously, hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. I'm going to project a stabilization field. Don't resist it. Focusing on the Omnitrix symbol, Ben activated the emergency protocols. A green pattern of energy emerged from the symbol, expanding outward toward the unstable creature. The pattern resembled a complex web of light, carrying the stabilization codes within its structure. As the pattern reached the creature, it shuddered violently. The red energy within its form began to shift, patterns of green appearing within the chaos as the stabilization code took effect. It's working, Momo whispered in awe. The creature's erratic movements calmed, its form becoming more cohesive under the influence of the stabilization pattern. The jagged crystals smoothed slightly, and the uncontrolled energy discharges diminished. Now, Ben instructed, focus on reverting to your human form. Let go of the transformation. The being trembled, crystals grinding as its structure began to change. Can't, remember, human. Yes, you can, Ben encouraged, maintaining the stabilization field despite the strain on his own form. Focus on your original self. The transformation is temporary. Your true form is human. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like shattering glass, the crystal structure began to collapse inward. Red and green energy swirled together, compressing toward a central point as the transformation reversed. Where the crystal being had stood, a human figure now crouched, a young man with unkempt dark hair, wearing a torn laboratory uniform. He looked up with disoriented eyes, confusion evident on his pale face. What happened? He asked weakly. Where am I? Before anyone could answer, the forest echoed with the sound of approaching footsteps. Aizawa and several other teachers arrived, surveying the scene with expressions ranging from relief to barely contained fury. I believe, Aizawa said with dangerous calm, that all of you were instructed to evacuate to the shelters. The students exchanged guilty glances. Ben, still in Chaquetrix form, stepped forward. It's my responsibility, sir. I tracked the energy signature and insisted on investigating. Actually, Momo interjected, it was a joint decision. As his assigned partner, I share equal responsibility. As touching as your mutual self-sacrifice is, Aizawa replied dryly, explanations can wait. Who is this? He gestured to the confused young man. A victim, I think, Ben answered. Someone who was using unstable Chaquetrix DNA to transform. The young man looked up at the name. Chaquetrix, yes, that's what they called it. The sample. Who did? Aizawa demanded, kneeling beside him. Who gave you this sample? The Dimensional Research Initiative, the man replied, his voice strengthening as his faculties returned. I'm a lab assistant. After the energy anomaly 2 weeks ago, they isolated a unique DNA signature from the readings. They've been trying to replicate its properties. Energy anomaly, Momo repeated. Ben's arrival. The man nodded weakly. They detected a dimensional breach and collected energy patterns from the site. When they isolated what seemed to be DNA, they tested it on volunteers. His expression turned haunted. I was one of them. Who leads this initiative? Aizawa pressed. Dr. Kaito Shinomiya, the man answered. He said the DNA could revolutionize quirk science, create transformations beyond anything naturally possible. Ben and Momo exchanged alarmed glances. The name meant nothing to them, but Aizawa's expression darkened significantly. Shinomiya, he muttered. Should have known. You know him, sensei? Midoriya asked. Former UA support scientist, Aizawa explained tersely. Dismissed for ethical violations involving quirk experimentation. He's been off the grid for years. The Omnitrix began beeping its warning signal. Ben's 15 minutes were nearly up. We should get back to campus, Momo suggested. Both for Ben's safety and to properly debrief. Aizawa nodded, instructing the other teachers to secure the area while he escorted the students and the lab assistant back to UA's main buildings. As they walked, Ben noticed the IFAB tracker still detecting the harbor signature. What about the harbor attack? He asked. Contained, Aizawa replied. It wasn't a crystal being at all, just conventional villains using energy weapons that mimicked the signature. Another diversion. While they sent their test subject to infiltrate UA, Momo concluded. But why? To find me, Ben said grimly as the Omnitrix timed out, returning him to human form in a flash of red light. Or more specifically, to observe Chaquetrix in action. They needed more data to stabilize their copy. The lab assistant nodded weakly. Dr. Shinomiya said we needed to see the original transformation process. That only the Omnitrix holder could demonstrate the perfect form. So the harbor attack, the facility robberies, all designed to gather data and equipment while drawing attention away from their real goal, Momo summarized. And now they have that data, Ben realized. They've seen Chaquetrix in action, studied its abilities, maybe even recorded the stabilization pattern I projected. Aizawa's expression was grim. Which means we can expect more sophisticated attempts in the future. As they reached the main campus, medical staff took charge of the lab assistant while Aizawa instructed the students to report to the conference room for debriefing. Before they separated, Momo placed a hand on Ben's arm. Are you all right? She asked quietly. Using the stabilization protocol seemed to strain your transformation. Ben nodded. I'm fine. Just tired. He hesitated before adding, you were amazing out there. The way you created exactly what we needed, when we needed it. A faint blush colored Momo's cheeks. I merely applied what we've learned in our training. No, it was more than that. You adapted perfectly to an impossible situation. Ben smiled tiredly. I've worked with a lot of heroes, Momo. You're one of the best I've ever seen. The compliment clearly caught her off guard. For a moment, her composed demeanor faltered, revealing genuine emotion beneath. Thank you, she said finally. That means a great deal, coming from someone who has saved his universe multiple times. Multiple dimensions, Ben corrected with a teasing smile. Get your facts straight, Vice Republic, that earned him a small laugh, breaking the tension that had built during the confrontation. As they walked together toward the conference room, Ben was struck again by how quickly this world, and the people in it, had become important to him. particularly the brilliant, composed young hero walking beside him. The debriefing was lengthy but thorough. Each student recounted their observations, with particular attention to the crystal being's abilities and weaknesses. Ben explained the stabilization protocol, while Momo provided detailed analysis of the energy patterns they'd observed. Based on what we've learned, Principal Nizu concluded, this dimensional research initiative poses a significant threat, not just to Ben, but potentially to our entire world. If they succeed in stabilizing the Chaquetrix DNA for human use, they could create an army of energy manipulators, All Might finished gravely. Beyond anything our hero system is prepared to handle. Not to mention the dimensional technology they're developing, Momo added. The components stolen from research facilities could theoretically create controlled portals between worlds. Ben frowned. Which means they might be planning to access my dimension directly, maybe to obtain more alien DNA samples. We need to locate their base of operations, Aizawa stated. Based on the lab assistant's testimony, it's somewhere in the industrial district outside Muzudafu. The IFAB tracker might help, Ben suggested. If they're experimenting with Chaquetrix DNA, it should detect the energy signatures. Principal Nizu nodded. Excellent suggestion. We'll organize a reconnaissance mission with pro-heroes to investigate potential locations. In the meantime, security around UA will be doubled. What about us? Midoriya asked. How can we help? By focusing on your training, Aizawa replied firmly. Especially you, Tennyson. Mastering Chaquetrix completely may be our best defense against whatever Shinomiya is planning. As the meeting concluded, night had fallen over UA's campus. Students were permitted to return to their dormitories under escort, the day's events having exhausted everyone. In the common area of Heights Alliance, Class 1A's dormitory, Ben found himself surrounded by curious classmates, all eager to discuss the confrontation in the forest. That was some seriously manly fighting, Kirishima enthused, punching Ben's shoulder companionably. The way you stabilized that guy was incredible. Your energy manipulation has improved significantly, Todoroki observed in his usual measured tone. The training with Yaoyorozu seems effective. Speaking of which, Ashido interjected with a mischievous grin, you two work together like you've been partners for years, not days. Any developments to report? Ben felt heat rising in his face. We're just training partners, he insisted, aware of Momo entering the room behind him. Nothing more. Right, Kaminari smirked. That's why you positioned yourself between her and danger every chance you got. That's what heroes do, Ben countered, increasingly uncomfortable with the conversation's direction. He's correct, Momo stated, her voice carrying that note of authority that immediately commanded attention. Heroes protect civilians and each other. Analyzing such actions for romantic subtext is both inappropriate and unproductive. The clinical rebuke effectively ended the teasing, though Ashido and Hagakure exchanged knowing glances that suggested the topic was merely postponed, not abandoned. As the group dispersed for evening activities, Ben found himself alone with Momo near the kitchen area. An awkward silence fell between them, the first since they'd begun working together. I apologize for their implications, Momo said finally. They tend to romanticize partnerships. It's fine, Ben assured her. Happens in my dimension too. Put two people together long enough, and everyone starts speculating. Momo nodded, though something in her expression seemed hesitant. I should clarify that my earlier statement was meant to deflect unwanted attention, not to suggest that I find the concept inherently problematic. Ben blinked, processing her formal phrasing. Are you saying you don't mind that they think we might be, more than training partners? A faint blush colored Momo's cheeks, though her composure remained intact. I'm saying that such developments, while complicated by our unique circumstances, would not be unwelcome from my perspective. Hypothetically speaking. Ben felt his heart rate accelerate in a way that had nothing to do with Omnitrix transformations. Hypothetically speaking, he echoed, I might share that perspective. Their eyes met, the moment charged with unspoken possibilities. Then, simultaneously, they both smiled, acknowledging the complexity of their situation without diminishing the genuine connection that had formed. However, Momo continued, practical as always, our priority must remain addressing the current crisis. Personal considerations should be secondary to saving the world. Ben finished with a wry smile. Trust me, I'm familiar with that particular balancing act. I imagined you might be, she replied, her own smile softening. Perhaps that's why we work well together. We understand certain priorities. Before Ben could respond, his student phone chimed with a message from Power Loader, new developments with IFAB data. Workshop tomorrow, 0700. Bring Yayarozu. He showed Momo the message. Looks like our day starts early tomorrow. Indeed. She gathered her notes from the table. We should rest. The stabilization process seemed to drain your energy considerably. Yours too, Ben observed. Creating all those devices in rapid succession couldn't have been easy. Momo's expression became thoughtful. It was different today. Usually, creating complex items in succession exhausts me quickly. But working alongside your energy forms somehow facilitated the process. As though our abilities resonated with each other. I felt it too, Ben admitted. Like we were operating on the same wavelength. A fascinating phenomenon worthy of further study, Momo said, though her scientific tone couldn't quite mask the personal interest beneath it. Perhaps we can explore it during tomorrow's session. I'd like that, Ben replied simply. As they parted ways for the night, Ben felt the weight of the day's revelations balanced against something new and unexpectedly hopeful. The danger was real and growing, Shinomiya's experiments, the Dimensional Research Initiative, the hunt for the Omnitrix, but he wasn't facing it alone. In this strange new world, he'd found not just allies, but something more profound. Understanding. Connection. Possibility. He glanced at the Omnitrix, its green light pulsing steadily in the darkness of his room. Whatever Shinomiya was planning, whatever came next, Ben knew one thing with certainty, he and Momo would face it together. And that made all the difference. Dawn broke over UA campus with a stillness that belied the previous day's chaos. Ben arrived at the support department workshop early, finding Hatsum already deep in work despite the hour. Power Loader was nowhere to be seen. You're early. Hatsum exclaimed, not looking up from a complex apparatus that resembled the IFAB but significantly expanded. Good. More time for science. Is Power Loader coming? Ben asked, glancing around the cluttered space. Eventually. Probably. Maybe. Hatsum shrugged. He said something about proper authorization and ethical considerations before I stopped listening. That didn't sound encouraging. Maybe we should wait for him. Nonsense. Science waits for no one. Hatsum finally looked up, her crosshair pupils focusing intensely. Besides, I've made a BRAKTHRUGH. Before Ben could respond, the workshop door opened, admitting Momo. She carried a tablet filled with notes and what appeared to be freshly created scientific instruments. Good morning, she greeted them, setting her equipment on an empty workbench. I see you've already begun, Hatsum. Never stopped. Hatsum declared proudly. Sleep is for those without inspiration. Momo glanced at Ben, who shrugged helplessly. Dealing with Hatsum's manic energy was like trying to redirect a hurricane with good intentions. What's this breakthrough you mentioned? He asked, steering the conversation toward productivity. Hatsum's eyes lit up. After analyzing yesterday's data, especially the stabilization pattern your Omnitrix projected, I realized something amazing. The Chaquetrix DNA isn't just energy manipulation, it's adaptive energy manipulation. Meaning? Momo prompted. It learns. Hatsum exclaimed. Each time it interacts with a new energy source, it adapts to better utilize it. That's why Shinomiya can't stabilize his copies, they lack the adaptation algorithms contained in the Omnitrix. Ben considered this. So Chaquetrix isn't just powerful, it's evolving with each transformation. Exactly. Which means, Hatsum froze mid-sentence, her expression changing to one of sudden realization. Wait. That gives me an idea. She dove toward another workbench, rummaging frantically through components and half-finished devices until she emerged with what looked like a modified version of the energy calibrator Momo had created for their training. If Chaquetrix adapts to energy signatures, she theorized rapidly, then maybe the Omnitrix's connectivity problem isn't about dimensional frequency at all. Maybe it just needs to adapt to our dimension's native energy pattern. Momo's eyes widened with understanding. Of course. The Omnitrix is searching for familiar energy signatures from Ben's dimension, but finding none compatible except the Chaquetrix DNA it acquired here. So if we could expose it to a concentrated sample of this dimension's baseline energy. Ben began. It might recalibrate its internal systems to recognize and interface with our dimensional frequency. Momo finished. Yes. Hatsum punched the air triumphantly. And I've built just the thing. The Dimensional Energy Resonance Amplifier. Or DRA for short. She proudly presented what appeared to be a modified gauntlet with complex circuitry and a chamber designed to fit around the Omnitrix. This will expose your device to concentrated, purified samples of our dimension's baseline energy, she explained. If my theory is correct, it will help the Omnitrix adapt and potentially restore its full functionality. Ben examined the device with cautious optimism. Is it safe? Probably. Hatsum declared with significantly more enthusiasm than the word warranted. 87% chance of success, 12% chance of minor explosion, 1% chance of creating a small dimensional rift. Those aren't reassuring odds, Momo noted with concern. They're the best odds in science. Hatsum countered. Before they could discuss further, the workshop door opened again. Ben expected Power Loader, but instead found Midoriya and Todoroki entering. Sorry to interrupt, Midoriya said, slightly out of breath. But there's news you need to hear immediately. What's happened? Momo asked, instantly alert. The lab assistant from yesterday, Todoroki explained, his mismatched eyes serious. He's gone. Disappeared from the medical ward during the night. Disappeared? Ben echoed. Or taken. Security footage shows him walking out voluntarily, Todoroki continued. But Aizawa-sensei's suspects mind control or coercion. That's not all, Midoriya added grimly. 3 more energy signatures matching Chaquetrix have been detected in the city. All moving with purpose, all heading toward the industrial district. Shinomiya has more test subjects, Momo realized. And they're returning to base. Or being recalled, Ben suggested. Now that they've observed the real Chaquetrix in action, they're ready for the next phase of whatever they're planning. Hatsum, undeterred by the ominous news, thrust the DRA toward Ben. All the more reason to try this now. If Shinomiya is making his move, you'll need full access to your transformation roster. Ben hesitated, weighing the risks. On one hand, Hatsum's invention could potentially restore the Omnitrix's functionality. On the other, an 87% chance of success meant a 13% chance of something going wrong, at the worst possible time. I think we should consult with Power Loader first, Momo suggested cautiously. This technology interacts directly with the Omnitrix's core systems. If something goes wrong, sometimes heroes have to take risks, Ben said quietly. He looked at the DRA, then at Momo. But you're right. This isn't just my decision. If something happens to the Omnitrix, it affects everyone fighting against whatever Shinomiya is planning. Midoriya stepped forward. The faculty are gathering for an emergency meeting right now. They're organizing a response to the energy signatures. We should join them, bring the DRA and explain the theory. Let them make an informed decision. Reasonable and boring, Hatsum sighed dramatically. But fine. I'll bring my beautiful baby to the meeting and dazzle them with science. As they prepared to leave, Ben pulled Momo aside. What do you really think about the Dure? Theoretically, the principle is sound, she admitted. But Hatsum's execution tends toward the enthusiastic rather than the precise. That's diplomatic phrasing for, her inventions sometimes explode, Ben translated with a small smile. Indeed. Momo's expression became serious. But Midori is right. This isn't a decision to make hastily, especially not with Shinomiya making his move. Ben nodded, trusting her judgment. As they followed the others toward the faculty building, he found himself reflecting on how quickly he'd come to rely on her perspective, not just her intelligence, but her measured approach to problems. The emergency meeting was already underway when they arrived. Principal Nizu, Aizawa, All Might, and several other faculty members gathered around a holographic display showing multiple energy signatures moving through the city. The pattern suggests coordination, Aizawa was saying as they entered. These aren't random movements. They appear to be converging on this area, Nizu observed, indicating an industrial zone near the harbor. Consistent with the lab assistant's description of their facility's location. All Might noticed their arrival. Ah, young Tennyson, Yayorozu. Perhaps you can shed light on these energy patterns? Midoriya quickly explained the situation, while Hatsum enthusiastically presented her Dure theory. The faculty listened with varying expressions of concern and skepticism. Let me understand this correctly, Principal Nizu said when they finished. You believe this device might help the Omnitrix reconnect with its database, potentially restoring young Tennyson's access to his full roster of transformations? Yes. Hatsum confirmed. With only a 12% chance of minor explosion. That's not reassuring, Aizawa muttered. However, Momo interjected more diplomatically, the theoretical foundation is sound. If the Omnitrix adapts to this dimension's energy signature, it could potentially restore functionality. Power Loader, who had joined the meeting late, examined the DRA with professional interest. The construction is actually quite sophisticated. Hatsum has incorporated multiple safety protocols. Not willingly. Hatsum clarified. He made me add them. The timing is concerning, All Might noted. With these new energy signatures converging, Shinomiya is clearly accelerating his plans. If young Tennyson had access to his full powers, it could provide a significant tactical advantage, Nizu finished. However, the risk remains substantial. If the process fails or damages the Omnitrix further, we lose our strongest asset against whatever Shinomiya is planning, Aizawa concluded grimly. All eyes turned to Ben, who felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The Omnitrix wasn't just his tool, in this situation, it represented hope for both worlds. I believe we should try, he said finally. But with precautions. Full monitoring, emergency protocols in place, and immediate abort capability if anything seems wrong. I concur, Momo added. And I volunteer to supervise the process. My creation quirk allows me to rapidly produce equipment that might counteract unexpected energy fluctuations. Principal Nizu considered for a moment, then nodded. Very well. Proceed with the experiment, but with all suggested safeguards. Meanwhile, we'll continue tracking these energy signatures and preparing a response team. As the faculty shifted to tactical planning, Ben, Momo, and Hatsum moved to a specialized testing chamber adjacent to the conference room. Power Loader joined them, bringing additional monitoring equipment. If anything seems off, we abort immediately, he instructed Hatsum firmly. No exceptions, no, just one more minute, no, but it was almost working. Yes, sir, Hatsum agreed with uncharacteristic seriousness. This is too important for my usual creative liberties. The testing chamber was quickly transformed into a miniature laboratory. Momo created specialized instruments to monitor both the Omnitrix and Ben's vital signs, while Hatsum made final adjustments to the Dire. Ready? Hatsum asked, positioning the device around Ben's wrist, carefully fitting it over the Omnitrix. Ben took a deep breath, meeting Momo's eyes across the room. She gave him a reassuring nod. Ready, he confirmed. Hatsum activated the DRA. It hummed to life, lights pulsing along its circuitry as it began generating the dimensional energy sample. The chamber around the Omnitrix glowed with increasing intensity, bathing Ben's arm in blue-white light. Initial readings stable, power loader reported, monitoring the displays. Omnitrix is receiving the energy sample. Vital signs normal, Momo added, watching her own instruments. No adverse reactions detected. For a moment, everything proceeded as planned. The Omnitrix's green light pulsed in rhythm with the DRA's energy injections, suggesting successful interfacing. Then, without warning, the Omnitrix flashed yellow, the same color it had displayed when Ben first arrived in this dimension. Energy spike. Power loader called out. The Omnitrix is generating its own frequency response. That's good. Hatsum exclaimed. It's communicating with the DRA. The yellow flashing accelerated, then shifted to a rapid alternation between yellow and green. The DRA's humming increased in pitch, its components heating visibly. Temperature rising beyond safe parameters, Momo warned, creating a cooling device instantly. The energy exchange is becoming unstable. Just a little longer, Hatsum pleaded. It's almost synchronized. Ben felt the Omnitrix grow hot against his skin, not painfully so, but with a familiar sensation he recognized from previous recalibrations. It's working, he realized. The Omnitrix is adapting. The device suddenly emitted a high-pitched tone, and the display changed. Instead of the single Chaquetrix silhouette, multiple alien forms began cycling through the holographic interface. It's restoring the database. Ben exclaimed. I can see Humongousaur, XLR8, Diamondhead. His celebration was cut short as the DRA sparked violently. Smoke began rising from its circuitry as the energy exchange intensified beyond its design parameters. Abort. Power loader commanded. Hatsum, shut it down now. But it's working, she protested. Momo, Ben called urgently, the emergency release. Momo activated the release mechanism she'd created, separating the DRA from the Omnitrix. The device fell away, still sparking and smoking, but the damage was done. The Omnitrix continued cycling through alien silhouettes at increasing speed, its core glowing with intense green light. Energy crackled around it, dancing up Ben's arm in luminescent patterns. What's happening? Power loader demanded, as his instruments displayed readings off the scale. Dimensional resonance, Momo realized, studying her own readings. The Omnitrix isn't just adapting to our dimension, it's connecting to multiple dimensions simultaneously. Before anyone could respond, the Omnitrix emitted a blinding flash of green light that filled the testing chamber. When it faded, Ben stood transformed, but not as Chaquetrix or any alien from his known roster. His form was humanoid but clearly alien, sleek, silver-blue skin with circuitry-like patterns flowing across its surface. 6 crystalline structures floated around his shoulders, each pulsing with different colored energy. The Omnitrix symbol shone from his chest, surrounded by a complex array of energy nodes. Ben. Momo approached cautiously. Are you alright? When he spoke, his voice resonated with harmonics that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. I'm different. This is a new form. I can feel everything. What do you mean, everything? Power loader asked, scanning the new transformation with evident concern. Dimensional energy. All of it. Everywhere. Ben raised a hand, watching energy flow between his fingers like liquid light. I can sense the connections between dimensions, the pathways between worlds. Fascinating, Hatsum breathed, her goggles recording everything. The DRA must have exposed the Omnitrix to multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously, creating a hybrid transformation with interdimensional sensitivity. Can you access your other aliens? Momo asked, the practical question cutting through the wonder of the moment. Ben focused on the Omnitrix symbol. Yes, they're all there. The connection is restored. His expression became troubled. But I can sense something else too. Something wrong. What is it? Momo pressed. Dimensional fractures. Near the harbor district. Ben's glowing eyes widened. Shinomiya isn't just experimenting with Chaquetrix DNA, he's trying to create dimensional portals. And he's succeeding. Before they could process this alarming news, the testing chamber door burst open. Aizawa stood there, his expression grim despite his momentary surprise at Ben's new form. We've lost track of the energy signatures, he reported tersely. All of them vanished simultaneously 5 minutes ago. They've activated dimensional cloaking technology, Ben realized, the knowledge coming to him through his new form's awareness. I can still sense them, but differently now. They're preparing something big. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. What is this form? What happened? Accidental discovery. Hatsum declared proudly. We created an interdimensional awareness transformation. Chromastar, Ben corrected automatically, the name coming to him as it always did with new transformations. That's what this form is called. Whatever it's called, can it help us locate Shinomiya's operation? Aizawa demanded. Yes, Ben confirmed. I can track dimensional disturbances directly. And there's a massive one building at these coordinates. He projected an energy map from his hand, showing a precise location in the industrial district. That's an abandoned research facility, power loader identified. Supposedly decommissioned after safety violations 3 years ago. Not abandoned anymore, Ben said grimly. And whatever they're building there is nearly operational. Aizawa didn't waste time on further questions. I'll inform the response team. Be ready to move in 30 minutes. Yayorozu, ensure Tennyson is prepared with whatever equipment you deem necessary. As Aizawa departed to coordinate the response, Ben focused on his new form, exploring its capabilities. The 6 crystals orbiting his shoulder seemed to represent different energy types, each one granting access to unique abilities. This is remarkable, Momo observed, creating specialized instruments to analyze the transformation. Each crystal appears to channel a different dimensional frequency. In theory, this could allow you to manipulate the very fabric of space-time. It's powerful, Ben agreed, but unstable. I can feel it straining my human DNA already. This form won't last long. Then we should maximize its utility while it persists, Momo decided pragmatically. Can you locate the exact nature of Shinomiya's dimensional technology? Ben concentrated, focusing the crystals on the distant energy signature. It's a portal generator. Massive scale. Designed to create a stable pathway between dimensions. To your world? Hatsum asked. No, Ben realized with growing alarm. To the space between dimensions. The void where other things exist, dangerous things. They're not trying to reach my Earth, they're trying to access the dimensional void itself. Why would anyone intentionally access a void between dimensions? Power Loader questioned. Power, Ben answered simply. Dimensional void energy is incredibly potent, and incredibly unstable. If harnessed correctly, it could enhance quirks beyond their natural limits. If handled improperly. Catastrophic dimensional collapse, Momo finished, her scientific mind grasping the implications immediately. They could tear apart the barriers between all dimensions. We need to stop them, Ben stated, the crystals pulsing with increased intensity around him. Before they activate the portal. As they prepared to join the response team, Ben felt the Omnitrix timer activate. Chromastar wouldn't last much longer, perhaps 10 minutes at most. He would need to use this time strategically. Momo seemed to read his thoughts. When this form times out, which of your restored aliens would be most effective against Shinomiya's operation? Ben considered the question carefully. Way Big could destroy their facility outright, but might cause too much collateral damage. Feedback could absorb the portal's energy, but might be overwhelmed by its scale. You need precision and containment rather than raw power, Momo observed. Exactly. I'm thinking clockwork for temporal manipulation to slow the portal's formation, then Alien X if absolutely necessary for dimensional repair. Momo's eyes widened. You have a transformation that can manipulate time itself. And one that can reshape reality, Ben confirmed. But both come with significant limitations and risks. I use them only as last resorts. Before they could discuss further, Aizawa returned, accompanied by All Might, Present Mike, and several other pro-heroes Ben recognized from his studies at UA. The response team is assembled, Aizawa announced. We move in 15 minutes. Tennyson, you'll guide us to the dimensional disturbances. Yaoyorozu, you'll provide tactical support and specialized equipment as needed. What about us? Midoriya asked from the doorway, where he stood with Todoroki, Bakugo, Kirishima, and several other Class 1A students. We want to help. Aizawa's immediate reaction was clear, absolute refusal. But All Might placed a hand on his shoulder. These students have faced dimensional threats before, he reminded his colleague quietly. And they've worked effectively with young Tennyson already. After a moment's consideration, Aizawa relented slightly. Select students may join the secondary response team. Support roles only. You will maintain a safe perimeter and evacuate civilians if necessary. Though clearly wanting more direct involvement, the students accepted these terms. As preparations continued around him, Ben found himself standing beside Momo, both silently processing the magnitude of what lay ahead. Are you afraid? He asked quietly, the question surprising even himself. Momo considered it with her usual thoughtfulness. Yes, she admitted. But not paralyzing fear. The kind that heightens awareness and sharpens focus. The useful kind, Ben nodded, understanding perfectly. Are you? She returned the question. Always, Ben confessed. Every dimension-threatening crisis, every world-ending scenario, I'm always afraid. I just don't let it stop me. Momo smiled slightly. That's what makes a true hero. Not fearlessness, but courage despite fear. As the Omnitrix timer beeped its warning, Ben looked at Momo, really looked at her. In the chaos of preparation, with heroes rushing around them and the weight of 2 dimensions possibly resting on their shoulders, he found himself memorizing her face, the determined set of her jaw, the intelligence in her dark eyes, the strength in her elegant features. Momo, he began, uncertain how to express what he wanted to say. I know, she interrupted gently. We'll discuss it after we save the world. Ben smiled, the worry in his chest easing slightly. Promise? Promise, she affirmed. The Omnitrix flashed red, returning Ben to human form. But unlike before, when only Chaquetrix had been available, the full roster of aliens now cycled through the display when he activated it. All systems restored, he confirmed, relief evident in his voice. We have options now. Then let's use them, Momo replied, creating a specialized communication device that she handed to him. Together. As they joined the assembled heroes preparing to move out, Ben felt something he hadn't experienced since arriving in this dimension, the familiar, balanced confidence that came with having the right tools and the right people by his side. Whatever Shinomiya was planning, whatever dimensional catastrophe threatened this world that had become surprisingly important to him, Ben was ready to face it. Not alone, but with Momo Yaoyorozu, brilliant, steadfast, and somehow more fascinating than any alien transformation the Omnitrix had ever given him. Chapter 3, 2 Worlds, 1 Heart. The convoy of UA vehicles cut through the pre-dawn darkness, moving swiftly toward Muzutafu's industrial district. Ben sat beside Momo in the lead transport, studying the holographic map she'd created showing Shinomiya's facility. The Omnitrix hummed against his wrist, fully functional for the first time since his arrival in this dimension. The dimensional disturbances are growing stronger, Ben noted, feeling the subtle vibrations in reality that only his recent transformation as Chromastar had made him sensitive to. Whatever Shinomiya is building, it's nearly operational. According to the schematics we extracted from the lab assistant's testimony, Momo replied, adjusting the hologram, the portal generator would be housed here, in the central chamber. Surrounded by power regulation systems and likely heavily guarded. In the seats ahead of them, Aizawa and All Might listened intently to their analysis. Other pro-heroes filled the remaining vehicles, Present Mike, Midnight, Snipe, and Ectoplasm, along with a tactical support team. The secondary response unit followed at a safe distance, carrying the UA students permitted to join the operation in support roles. The priority is containment, Aizawa reminded them. If Shinomiya has indeed created technology capable of accessing the dimensional void, uncontrolled release of that energy could be catastrophic. Which is why I'm going in first, Ben stated firmly. Some of my aliens are specifically equipped to handle dimensional anomalies. If the portal activates before we can shut it down, I might be the only one who can close it safely. Young Tennyson, All Might turned in his seat, his sunken eyes serious despite his diminished form. I understand your determination, but rushing in alone would be reckless. Not alone, Momo interjected. We've trained for this. My creation quirk can produce specialized equipment to complement his transformations, containment devices, energy dampeners, dimensional stabilizers. Our abilities work best in tandem, Ben added. We've proven that repeatedly. Aizawa studied them both, his tired eyes missing nothing. You've developed an effective partnership in a remarkably short time, he observed. Very well. You'll take point on the dimensional technology, but with proper backup. No unnecessary heroics. As they approached the target location, Ben felt a familiar pre-battle tension, the same he'd experienced before confronting Vilgax, Gregor, and countless other threats across multiple dimensions. But this time, something was different. He glanced at Momo beside him, her expression focused as she created final equipment adjustments, and realized what had changed. In his world, even with Gwen and Kevin's help, Ben often carried the ultimate responsibility alone. The Omnitrix was his burden, the final decisions his to make. Here, with Momo, the weight felt truly shared, not just the tactical planning, but the fundamental responsibility of heroism itself. We're approaching the perimeter, the driver announced, slowing the vehicle as they entered the industrial zone. No security visible, Snipe observed from his position by the window. Suspicious for a secret research facility. They're inside, Ben said with certainty. And they know we're coming. The convoy stopped several blocks from the target building, an imposing concrete structure that had once been a legitimate research facility before Shinomiya had repurposed it. From the outside, it appeared abandoned, with boarded windows and fading hazard signs warning trespassers away. Thermal imaging shows minimal heat signatures, one of the tactical team members reported. Either they're heavily shielded or, they're using the crystal beings to absorb the facility's energy emissions, Ben interrupted. Standard Chaquetrix capability, energy containment to prevent detection. The heroes deployed with practiced efficiency, establishing a perimeter while Aizawa outlined the final approach plan. Ben and Momo listened carefully, but Ben's attention was partially diverted by the Omnitrix, which had begun pulsing subtly, responding to the dimensional distortions emanating from the facility. It's accelerating, he warned, checking the device. The portal initiation sequence has started. Aizawa immediately adjusted the plan. We move now. All Might, Present Mike, and Ectoplasm, take the main entrance. Midnight, Snipe, and I will secure the secondary access points. Tennyson, Yayorozu, you're with me. Once we've confirmed the portal location, you'll move to contain it while we handle Shinomiya and his operatives. As they moved toward the facility, Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through his restored roster. I need something stealthy but powerful for the initial entry, he mused. XLR-8 would be too conspicuous, Big Chill too vulnerable to energy detection? What about the one with intangibility? Momo suggested. You mentioned it during our training sessions. Ghost Freak. Ben considered it. Good idea, but potentially risky. His consciousness can be unstable in certain energy environments. He continued scrolling until finding a more suitable option. Here we go. Nanomech, microscopic size, energy resistance, and perfect for infiltration. He pressed down on the dial, and the familiar green flash enveloped him. When it faded, a tiny mechanical insect-like being hovered where Ben had stood, barely visible except for the minute green glow of the Omnitrix symbol. Whoa, Present Mike whispered, staring at the transformed Ben. That's seriously tiny. Nanomech can infiltrate through virtually any opening, Ben's voice explained, surprisingly clear despite coming from such a small form. I'll scout ahead, identify security systems, and relay information through Momo's communication device. Be careful, Momo cautioned, adjusting her earpiece to receive his transmissions. If Shinomiya has energy detection systems calibrated for dimensional anomalies. I know, the tiny alien replied. In and out, no heroics. Just reconnaissance. As the pro-heroes moved into position, Nanomech zipped forward, easily slipping through a ventilation grate near the building's foundation. The facility's interior was dimly lit, illuminated primarily by emergency lighting and the eerie glow of experimental equipment. Nanomech navigated through ducts and wall cavities, his diminutive size allowing him to observe undetected. Security is minimal on the outer levels, he reported through the comm, but I'm detecting unusual energy patterns deeper inside, consistent with multiple Chaquetrix signatures. How many? Aizawa's voice came through clearly. At least 5, maybe more. They're different from the one we encountered at UA. More stable, but less powerful. Like diluted versions. Nanomech continued deeper, eventually reaching a massive central chamber where the source of the dimensional disturbance became apparent. A colossal machine dominated the space, concentric rings of gleaming metal suspended around a central axis, already beginning to spin with increasing speed. Energy arced between the rings, creating a nascent dimensional aperture at the center. Found it, he reported. It's bigger than we anticipated. Already in the activation phase. Around the machine, technicians worked frantically, monitoring readings and adjusting parameters. Supervising them was a tall, austere man with silver-streaked hair and calculating eyes, Dr. Kaito Shinomiya himself, based on the photographs they'd studied during briefing. Most concerning, however, were the guards, humanoid figures whose skin had partially crystallized, glowing with subdued red energy. Not full transformations like the test subject who had attacked UA, but hybrid forms, humans with partial Chaquetrix integration. Shinomiya's created stable hybrid forms, Ben reported. They appear to be maintaining the portal's energy equilibrium. Can you access the control systems? Momo asked. Negative. They're isolated and heavily monitored. But I've identified 3 potential entry points for our team. Having gathered sufficient intelligence, Nanomech retreated to rendezvous with the heroes at their entry position. Once safely outside the building's interior detection range, Ben transformed back to human form. The portal is approximately 5 minutes from full activation, he reported urgently. Once it's operational, Shinomiya will be able to draw energy directly from the dimensional void. What's his objective? All Might questioned. Mere power acquisition seems insufficient motivation for such risk. Based on what I observed, he's created a system to harvest dimensional void energy and infuse it into living subjects, Ben explained. He believes it will elevate quirks beyond their natural limitations, create a new class of superpower transcending current capabilities. At the cost of potentially destabilizing our entire dimension, Momo added grimly. The energy patterns suggest catastrophic breakdown once the portal exceeds certain parameters. Then we move immediately, Aizawa decided. All teams, execute entry protocol. As the pro-heroes mobilized, Ben turned to Momo. I need an alien that can disrupt the portal's energy flow without causing a catastrophic backlash. Any suggestions? Momo considered the question with impressive analytical speed. Based on your descriptions, Feedback's energy absorption abilities seem most appropriate, but you mentioned concerns about capacity limitations. Right. Feedback could get overwhelmed by the sheer volume of dimensional energy. Then perhaps a combination approach, she suggested. I could create specialized containment equipment to supplement your absorption capacity. Ben smiled despite the gravity of the situation. Have I mentioned you're brilliant? A faint blush colored Momo's cheeks. Several times. But I appreciate the reminder. Their moment was interrupted by the building's alarms suddenly blaring to life. Their presence had been detected. Without further discussion, the heroes launched their coordinated assault. All Might, even in his diminished state, led Present Mic and Ectoplasm through the main entrance, while Aizawa's team breached through a service access point. Ready? Ben asked, activating the Omnitrix again. Momo nodded, her hands already glowing as she began creating equipment. Ready. Ben selected his transformation and slammed down on the dial. The green flash revealed Feedback, a tall, black alien with a single green eye and multiple plug-like appendages extending from his fingers, antennae, and tail. Let's go end this, he said, his voice carrying a slight electronic resonance. They moved swiftly through the facility, following the path Nanomech had identified. Ahead, they could hear the sounds of combat as the pro-heroes engaged Shinomiya's security forces. When they encountered two crystal hybrid guards, Ben didn't hesitate. Feedback's antennae connected with the glowing portions of their bodies, instantly draining the energy that powered their transformations. They collapsed, reverting to fully human form. They're not willing participants, Ben noted, checking that the unconscious guards were unharmed. The crystal integration seems to include some form of mental influence. All the more reason to shut down Shinomiya's operation completely, Momo replied, creating restraints that would prevent the guards from rejoining the fight if they regained consciousness. As they approached the central chamber, the dimensional distortion became physically palpable, a heaviness in the air, a subtle warping of light and sound. The massive portal generator was now fully operational, its concentric rings spinning so rapidly they appeared as solid disks of light. At the center, a tear in reality was forming, a window into the swirling chaos of the dimensional void. Shinomiya stood before it, arms outstretched as if in worship, while his remaining crystal hybrids channeled energy from the portal into collection devices arranged around the chamber. Magnificent, isn't it? He called out, somehow aware of their presence despite not turning around. The power between worlds, raw, infinite potential, waiting to be harnessed. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Ben responded, stepping forward. That's not just energy, it's the fabric of reality itself. You can't control it. Shinomiya turned, his eyes widening slightly at Ben's alien form. Ah, the dimensional traveler. I've been expecting you. His gaze shifted to Momo. And you've brought UA's brightest creation specialist. How appropriate. Dr. Shinomiya, Momo addressed him formally, your portal is causing critical instability in our dimensional boundary. You must deactivate it immediately. Shinomiya laughed, a cold, clinical sound. Deactivate the culmination of my life's work. Just as it's beginning to yield results. He gestured to the crystal hybrids. These are merely prototypes, imperfect vessels. But the next generation will transcend all limitations. They'll die, Ben countered bluntly. I've seen what happens when humans try to contain dimensional void energy. It consumes them from the inside out. Some sacrifices are necessary for progress, Shinomiya dismissed. Besides, you yourself are proof that cross-dimensional power can be safely integrated. Your Omnitrix was created by the most brilliant scientist in 5 galaxies, Ben interrupted. With safeguards you can't begin to comprehend. This crude attempt at dimensional manipulation will collapse, taking half of Japan with it. As they spoke, Ben noticed Momo subtly creating components, assembling what appeared to be an energy regulation system designed to interface with feedback's absorption abilities. She caught his eye briefly, a silent signal passing between them. Shinomiya noticed their exchange and smiled thinly. Attempting to devise a countermeasure. How admirably predictable. He snapped his fingers, and the crystal hybrids moved to intercept them, their partially transformed bodies pulsing with borrowed power. Keep him talking, Momo whispered. I need 2 more minutes. Ben nodded imperceptibly, then raised his voice. You know, I've met a lot of supposedly brilliant scientists who thought they could control forces beyond their understanding. Want to know what they all had in common? Shinomiya arched an eyebrow, momentarily indulging him. Do enlighten me. They all underestimated the complexity of interdimensional physics, Ben replied, subtly positioning himself between Shinomiya and Momo. Did you account for temporal displacement variance? Quantum probability collapse? Dimensional harmonic resonance? Though Shinomiya maintained his confident expression, a flicker of doubt crossed his features. My calculations are incomplete, Ben finished. Because you're working with partial data from a single-dimensional intersection event, my arrival. You don't have the full spectrum of interdimensional constants. As Ben kept Shinomiya distracted with increasingly technical jargon, some legitimate, some completely fabricated, the portal behind them pulsed ominously, the tear in reality widening. Through it, glimpses of the dimensional void became visible, swirling patterns of energy and matter in configurations that defied conventional physics. Momo, Ben said quietly, feeling the portal's stability deteriorating, we're running out of time. Almost ready, she replied, connecting the final components of her device, a complex array of conductors and regulators designed to channel feedback's energy absorption safely. The distraction had served its purpose, but Shinomiya's patience had run out. Enough. Secure them, he commanded the crystal hybrids, who moved forward with unnatural synchronization. Ben reacted instantly, feedback's plugs extending to connect with the nearest hybrid. Instead of simply draining its energy, however, he channeled a precise electrical impulse, disrupting the crystalline integration without harming the human host. The hybrid collapsed, its partial transformation receding. There's still people, Ben reminded Momo as she created defensive barriers to hold back the remaining hybrids. Just being controlled through the crystal energy. Then we need to free them all simultaneously, she concluded, rapidly adjusting her strategy. She produced what looked like a modified EMP device. This should disrupt the crystal energy's control frequency without affecting their basic life functions. While Momo prepared the device, Ben engaged the advancing hybrids. Feedback's natural agility and energy manipulation made him ideally suited to the task, absorbing their attacks while delivering precise countershocks that weakened their transformations without causing permanent harm. Across the chamber, they could see the other pro-heroes fighting their way through additional security forces. All Might, despite his limitations, was still a formidable combatant, while Aizawa's erasure quirk proved particularly effective against the partially transformed hybrids. Now, Ben called to Momo, creating an opening in the hybrid formation. She activated her device, sending a specialized pulse throughout the chamber. The effect was immediate, all remaining crystal hybrids shuddered, their transformations destabilizing as the control frequency was disrupted. Within seconds, they reverted to human form, collapsing unconscious but unharmed. Shinomiya's confident expression finally cracked. Impossible. The integration should be irreversible. You underestimated 2 things, Ben replied, advancing toward him. The complexity of dimensional physics, and the brilliance of Momo Yaoyorozu. With his hybrid guards neutralized, Shinomiya retreated toward the portal controls. It doesn't matter. The process has already passed the critical threshold. The portal will remain stable even without my guidance now. He was right, the dimensional tear had expanded significantly, its edges becoming more defined as it established a permanent connection to the void. Energy poured from it in visible waves, causing localized distortions in reality throughout the chamber. Ben. The portal's structural integrity is increasing exponentially. Momo called out, monitoring readings from a device she'd created. We have less than 3 minutes before permanent stabilization. Then we do this now, Ben decided, connecting feedback plugs to Momo's energy regulation system. Channel the absorption sequence through your device. I'll draw the energy directly from the portal's core. That much dimensional energy could overwhelm even feedback's absorption capacity, she warned, making final adjustments to the equipment. That's why I have you, Ben replied with simple confidence. Your regulator will distribute the load safely. Their eyes met briefly, a moment of perfect understanding amid chaos. Then Ben turned toward the portal, extending feedback's antennae and plugs directly into the swirling tear in reality. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Dimensional void energy surged through feedback's conductive body, raw power beyond anything Ben had previously channeled. Without Momo's regulator, it would have destroyed him instantly. Instead, the energy flowed through the specialized channels she had created, distributing the impossible load across multiple containment systems. It's working, she called over the roar of energy. The portal is destabilizing. Indeed, the dimensional tear was beginning to shrink, its edges becoming indistinct as feedback drained its power source. The concentric rings slowed, their brilliant glow dimming as the energy that sustained them was systematically absorbed. Shinomiya watched in horror as his creation began to collapse. No. Stop them, he commanded desperately, but his remaining technicians were already fleeing or being apprehended by the advancing pro-heroes. As the portal continued shrinking, something unexpected occurred. The tier's collapse accelerated suddenly, creating a powerful vacuum effect that began pulling everything nearby toward the dimensional void. Equipment, loose debris, and even smaller machinery were lifted and drawn toward the collapsing aperture. Ben! Momo called in alarm. The collapse is creating a gravitational singularity. If it implodes completely, it will take half the building with it, Ben finished grimly. I need to change tactics. Without disconnecting from Momo's regulator, Ben reached for the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. A flash of green light later, feedback was replaced by Gravitac, a massive, planet-like alien with incredible gravitational manipulation powers. Containment field. Ben called to Momo, his deep, rumbling voice strained with effort as he extended his hands toward the collapsing portal. Understanding immediately, Momo created a specialized containment barrier, designed to work in tandem with Gravitac's abilities. As Ben established a counter-gravitational field around the dimensional tear, her barrier reinforced the effect, creating a stable pocket that isolated the implosion's pull. Everyone clear the central platform. Aizawa ordered, recognizing the danger. The pro-heroes herded remaining technicians and unconscious hybrids toward the exits, while Shinomiya himself was restrained by All Might. I can't hold it much longer, Ben warned, the strain evident in his voice. Gravitac's form was actually beginning to deform slightly under the tremendous gravitational pressure. The singularity is too strong. Just a few more seconds, Momo urged, frantically creating additional support structures for her containment field. Once it collapses below critical mass, the dimensional tear will seal itself. The portal continued to shrink, now barely a meter in diameter but exerting gravitational force that threatened to tear apart Gravitac's dense molecular structure. Sweat beaded on Ben's rocky surface as he fought to maintain control. Almost, there. He gasped. With a final, violent pulse of energy, the portal collapsed entirely, imploding into itself with a thunderous concussion that shattered Momo's containment field and sent both heroes flying backward. The gravitational wave dissipated instantly once the tier sealed, leaving behind only scorched metal and damaged equipment where the massive portal generator had stood. Ben reverted to human form involuntarily, the strain having overtaxed the Omnitrix. He lay on the chamber floor, breathing heavily, as Momo rushed to his side. Ben! Are you all right? She asked urgently, helping him to a sitting position. Define, all right, he managed weakly. Pretty sure I just arm wrestled a black hole and almost lost. Relief washed over her features. If you're making jokes, your condition can't be too serious. Around them, the pro-heroes were securing the facility, apprehending Shinomiya's remaining staff and checking the condition of the crystal hybrids, who were slowly regaining consciousness, confused but apparently free of the crystalline influence. Dimensional tear successfully contained, Aizawa reported, approaching them. Good work, both of you. What about Shinomiya? Ben asked, looking around for the scientist. Secured, All Might confirmed, gesturing to where Shinomiya sat, restrained and under guard. Though I suspect the legal system will struggle to categorize his particular crimes. Dimensional manipulation with intent to endanger, Momo suggested dryly. Perhaps we should create a new statute. As the initial crisis response transitioned to security and cleanup operations, Ben activated his Omnitrix, checking its status. The device appeared fully functional but displayed an unusual reading, energy patterns he hadn't seen before. What is it? Momo asked, noticing his concerned expression. The Omnitrix recorded something during the portal collapse, Ben explained, studying the display. It's detected a frequency pattern. A pathway. To where? Home, Ben realized with sudden clarity. The dimensional coordinates of my Earth. The implications settled between them like a physical weight. For the first time since his unexpected arrival, Ben had concrete data that could potentially create a path back to his own dimension. The possibility that had seemed so remote just days ago now existed as tangible information within the Omnitrix. Their eyes met, both recognizing the unspoken question this development raised. Before either could address it, however, Aizawa called them to join the debriefing with the tactical team. We'll talk later, Momo said softly. After things settle. Ben nodded, pushing the discovery temporarily aside as they rejoined the pro-heroes. The immediate crisis had been averted, but its implications, both for this world and for his potential return home, would require careful consideration. The UA campus was unusually quiet the following evening. After a day of debriefings, medical evaluations, and coordinating with authorities regarding Shinomiya's apprehension, most students had retired early, exhausted by the events of the past 48 hours. Ben sat alone on the dormitory rooftop, staring at the Omnitrix as it displayed the dimensional coordinates it had recorded during the portal collapse. With Hatsam's help, he determined that the data could indeed be used to create a targeted dimensional doorway, a one-way trip back to his own Earth. The door to the rooftop opened quietly, and Momo stepped out. Without speaking, she joined him at the railing, following his gaze toward the city lights spread below them. The dimensional coordinates are valid, Ben said after a comfortable silence. Hatsam and Power Loader confirmed it. With the right equipment, I could open a portal home. Momo nodded, her expression thoughtful but composed. I suspected as much. The energy patterns during the implosion were remarkably coherent, a perfect mapping opportunity. Another silence fell between them, weighted with unspoken thoughts. I should be excited, Ben admitted finally. Going home, seeing my family again, getting back to my own life. It's what I've wanted since I arrived here. But? Momo prompted gently. But it feels complicated now. He turned to face her directly. This world, UA, the friends I've made here, you. It all matters to me in ways I didn't expect. Momo's carefully maintained composure softened. I understand. When you first arrived, helping you return home seemed like the obvious goal. Now it feels like leaving something important behind, Ben finished. Something I might never find again. The admission hung in the air between them, more significant than either had previously allowed themselves to acknowledge. We knew this was temporary, Momo said, her practical nature asserting itself despite the emotion in her eyes. You have responsibilities in your world, people who need you, threats only you can face. I know, Ben agreed. And you have your future here, becoming a pro-hero, using your incredible abilities to protect this world. They stood facing each other in the gentle evening breeze, the weight of two worlds and one impossible choice between them. When would you go? Momo asked finally. Hatsum says the equipment will be ready in 3 days. The portal would be temporary, open just long enough for a single crossing. Momo nodded, absorbing this information with characteristic poise. Then we have 3 days to ensure you're fully prepared. Your Omnitrix is functioning optimally now, but we should verify all transformations are accessible and stable. Ben smiled fondly at her immediate shift to practical planning. Always the thorough one. It's who I am, she replied with a small smile of her own. Though I admit, in this particular situation, focusing on technical details feels safer. Then what? Ben asked softly. Her dark eyes met his directly. Then acknowledging how profoundly your presence has affected me. Professionally and personally. The admission, delivered with Momo's characteristic dignity, affected Ben more deeply than any dramatic declaration might have. It was honest, understated, and perfectly her. You've changed me too, he told her. Working with you, the way you approach problems, the thoroughness of your thinking, your absolute commitment to doing what's right, it's made me a better hero. And a better person. Momo's composure wavered slightly, emotion breaking through her careful control. Perhaps that's why we worked so well together from the beginning. Beyond the compatibility of our abilities, there was a shared understanding, of responsibility, of purpose. Of each other, Ben added quietly. The distance between them had somehow diminished, neither having consciously moved closer yet finding themselves within arm's reach. The city lights below cast a gentle glow across Momo's features, highlighting the elegant strength that Ben had come to admire so deeply. I don't want to leave, he admitted, the words barely above a whisper. But I don't think I can stay. I know, Momo replied, her voice equally soft. And I would never ask you to abandon your world, your family, your responsibilities. That wouldn't be the Ben Tennyson I've come to. She paused, the unfinished sentence hanging between them. To what? Ben asked, heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with alien transformations or dimensional portals. Momo took a deep breath, her natural dignity momentarily giving way to vulnerable honesty. To care for. Deeply. The simple admission broke something open between them, a final barrier of professional distance and cautious restraint that had persisted despite their growing connection. Ben reached for her hand, finding it halfway as she reached for his. I care for you too. More than I thought possible in such a short time. Their fingers intertwined naturally, the contact sending a current through Ben that rivaled any energy feedback had ever absorbed. What do we do? Momo asked, practical even in this emotionally charged moment. 3 days, then worlds apart, literally. Ben thought of all the impossible situations he'd faced, all the seemingly insurmountable challenges he'd overcome with the Omnitrix. None had felt quite like this, a problem with no technological solution, no alien transformation that could bridge the gap between dimensions permanently. I don't know, he answered honestly. But I do know I don't want to waste the time we have left pretending this isn't important. Momo smiled, a rare, unreserved expression that transformed her usually composed features. Then we won't. We'll make these days count, and face the separation when it comes. With the same courage we apply to everything else. As the evening breeze swirled around them on the rooftop, Ben was struck by how perfectly Momo embodied the best qualities of a hero, not just power or intelligence, but wisdom and grace in facing the inevitable. When he leaned forward, she met him halfway. Their kiss was gentle, tentative at first, then deepening with the intensity of feelings neither had fully acknowledged until now. It felt both impossible and inevitable, a connection that transcended the short time they'd known each other, yet seemed to have been building since the moment they met. When they finally separated, Ben rested his forehead against hers. 3 days isn't enough. No, Momo agreed softly. But it's what we have. And I intend to make the most of every moment. In that promise was both joy and sorrow, the bittersweet reality of finding something precious only to know it couldn't last. Yet neither regretted the connection, even knowing its inevitable end. Some things, Ben realized, were worth the pain of eventual separation. Some people changed you forever, regardless of which dimension you called home. The next 3 days passed with remarkable speed, filled with final preparations for Ben's departure alongside moments stolen for just the two of them. By unspoken agreement, the rest of Class 1A gave them space, though knowing glances and supportive gestures made it clear their classmates understood the situation. On the morning of Ben's planned return, Hatsum's workshop was crowded with those who had come to say goodbye. The dimensional portal generator she had constructed with Power Loader's supervision dominated the center of the room, a more refined version of Shinomiya's technology, specifically calibrated to Ben's home coordinates. "It's beautiful," Hatsum declared, practically vibrating with excitement. A perfect integration of interdimensional transit principles with targeted molecular reassembly. And it only has a 12% chance of minor explosion. "That's not reassuring," Ben commented, though he couldn't help smiling at her enthusiasm. "The calculations are actually quite sound," Momo assured him, double-checking the final calibrations. "The portal will open for exactly 72 seconds, sufficient for transit but not long enough to cause dimensional instability." Around them, members of Class 1A and several faculty gathered to witness the departure. Midoriya approached Ben first, extending his hand. "Your energy manipulation techniques completely changed my understanding of quirk application," he said earnestly. "I've filled 3 notebooks with observations from our training sessions." "Only 3?" Ben teased, shaking his hand warmly. "I'm disappointed, Midoriya. I thought I was worth at least 5. Todoroki was next, his expression characteristically reserved but sincere. "Your adaptability is impressive. Few heroes master multiple combat styles so effectively." "Coming from you, that means a lot," Ben replied, having grown to respect the dual quirk user's remarkable control and tactical mind. One by one, his temporary classmates said their goodbyes, Bakugo with a gruff acknowledgement that "you're not completely useless," Uraraka with a tearful hug, Kirishima with declarations of Ben's manly spirit. Principal Nizu approached last among the faculty, extending a small paw. "UA High School has been honored to host such an extraordinary interdimensional visitor. You have contributed significantly to our understanding of powers beyond our own world." "I learned more than I taught," Ben replied honestly. "Your hero society, the way you train and support each other, it's something I'll take back with me." Speaking of which, All Might interjected, presenting Ben with a small package. A token of appreciation from the faculty. Inside was a UA High School uniform jacket, modified with the Omnitrix symbol embroidered beside the school crest. "Honorary graduate," Aizawa explained dryly. "Though technically you've only completed a fraction of the curriculum." "I'll wear it proudly," Ben promised, genuinely touched by the gesture. As final preparations continued, Ben found a moment alone with Momo near the workshop window. She wore her usual composed expression, though he had learned to see beyond it to the emotions she contained so carefully. "Are you sure the coordinates are correct?" she asked, her attention to detail present even in this emotional moment. "The targeting parameters are perfect," Ben assured her gently. "You triple-checked them yourself?" She nodded, a small smile acknowledging her thoroughness. "Force of habit. One of your many qualities I've come to appreciate," he replied. They stood in comfortable silence, both acutely aware of the dwindling minutes. "I have something for you," Momo said finally, creating an object from her palm with careful precision. When the glow of her quirk faded, she held a small crystalline device, elegantly designed with circuitry patterns reminiscent of Chaquetrix's form. "What is it?" Ben asked, accepting the gift. "An energy signature recorder," she explained. "It contains a perfect record of this dimension's frequency pattern, along with—" She hesitated briefly. "Along with an energy impression of my quirk's creation process. Unique to me, like a fingerprint." The significance wasn't lost on Ben. "So I'll always have a piece of this world. And of you." "I know it's sentimental," she admitted. "And perhaps scientifically unnecessary. But I wanted you to have something that couldn't be duplicated or replaced. Ben carefully tucked the crystal into his pocket. It's perfect. Thank you. He reached into his own pocket and withdrew something in return, a small component he'd removed from the Omnitrix during one of their final training sessions. I have something for you too. Momo accepted the small green cylinder with evident surprise. Is this a DNA sample capsule? Ben confirmed. Standard Omnitrix technology for temporary storage. It contains a stabilized sample of Chaquetrix DNA, enough for your research, but not enough to be dangerous if it fell into the wrong hands. Her eyes widened. Ben, this is extraordinary. The scientific applications alone, I trust you with it, he said simply. More than anyone in any dimension. The depth of trust this represented wasn't lost on Momo. She carefully secured the capsule, creating a specialized containment case for it instantly. I'll honor that trust, she promised. And continue our research into dimensional energy. Perhaps someday. She left the thought unfinished, but Ben understood. Perhaps someday, the barriers between dimensions might be overcome more permanently. It was a hope neither wanted to voice too directly, lest it make their impending separation more difficult. It's time, power loader called from the center of the workshop. Portal sequence initiating. Everyone gathered around the generator as it hummed to life, energy building in its core. The concentric rings began to spin, creating a familiar pattern that reminded Ben uncomfortably of Shinomiya's device, though this one was built with considerably more care and ethical consideration. Dimensional frequency locked, Hatsum announced, monitoring readings with uncharacteristic focus. Targeting Ben's home coordinates, now. A flash of brilliant light erupted from the generator, coalescing into a stable aperture approximately 2 meters in diameter. Through it, Ben could see a familiar scene, Bellwood Park, exactly where he disappeared from during his battle with Dr. Onomo's creation. Portal stability at 97%, power loader confirmed. 65 seconds remaining before automatic shutdown. This was it. The moment of return that Ben had initially wanted so desperately, now tinged with profound complexity. He turned to face his temporary classmates and teachers one last time. Thank you all. For everything. Then, finally, he faced Momo. In the glow of the portal, her eyes shimmered with emotion she no longer tried to conceal. I guess this is it, Ben said softly, taking her hands in his. Yes, she agreed, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. You need to go. Your family is waiting. Your world needs its hero. And yours needs you, Ben replied. One of the finest heroes I've ever known, in any dimension. Words seemed insufficient for everything left unsaid between them. Instead, Ben pulled her close, their kiss conveying what language couldn't fully express, affection, respect, admiration, and the unique connection that had formed between two people from different worlds. 30 seconds, power loader warned gently. They separated reluctantly, both acutely aware of time slipping away. Goodbye, Momo Yaoyorozu, Ben said, memorizing her face one last time. Goodbye, Ben Tennyson, she replied with quiet dignity. Until our dimensions cross again. With a final squeeze of her hand, Ben turned toward the portal. He stepped forward, feeling the distinctive energy wash over him as he crossed the dimensional threshold. The familiar sights and sounds of his home dimension enveloped him, the mundane normality of Bellwood Park a stark contrast to the world of heroes he was leaving behind. As he fully materialized on his Earth, Ben turned back for one final glimpse. Through the rapidly closing portal, he could see Momo standing tall, her composure perfect despite the emotion in her eyes, one hand raised in farewell. Then the portal closed, the connection severed as reality reasserted the boundaries between dimensions. Ben stood alone in Bellwood Park, exactly where he disappeared from, though how much time had passed here remained unclear. The Omnitrix hummed against his wrist, functioning perfectly once more, its full roster of aliens accessible. He reached into his pocket, finding the crystalline device Momo had created, tangible proof that his time in the world of heroes hadn't been a dream. Its surface was warm to the touch, resonating faintly with the unique energy signature of her quirk. With careful movements, Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling to a specific alien form he hadn't needed to use during his time at UA. The holographic silhouette of Clockwork, his time manipulation alien, appeared above the dial. Not yet, he told himself, deactivating the device without transforming. Going back immediately would undo everything, the growth, the lessons, the necessary separation. Both he and Momo had responsibilities to their respective worlds that couldn't be abandoned for personal feelings. But the Omnitrix now contained the dimensional coordinates. Clockwork's abilities could potentially bridge that gap again someday. And Ben had learned enough about patience and planning from Momo to know that some journeys required proper preparation. Not yet, he repeated softly. But someday. His phone buzzed in his pocket, still working, apparently. Multiple missed calls and messages from Gwen, Kevin, and Grandpa Max based on the timestamps. Only a few hours had passed in this dimension despite his weeks in the UA world. Time worked differently between dimensions. Perhaps that was another form of hope, that when he eventually found his way back to Momo, less time would have passed for her than for him. Ben took a deep breath, feeling the familiar air of his home dimension fill his lungs. He had returned changed, more thoughtful, more strategic, more appreciative of teamwork and preparation. Lessons learned from a brilliant creation specialist with dark eyes and unmatched dignity. With the crystalline device secure in his pocket and the Omnitrix restored to full functionality, Ben Tennyson began walking toward home, carrying with him the knowledge that somewhere across the dimensional barriers, another world continued turning. A world of heroes, where one particular hero might occasionally look up at the stars and wonder if, someday, dimensions might cross again. 6 months later, in the world of heroes, Momo Yaoyorozu stood in her private laboratory at UA's support department complex. Now a third-year student, she had been granted special research privileges to continue her dimensional energy studies under Power Loader's supervision. The small green cylinder, Ben's parting gift, sat in a specialized containment unit, its energy signature stable but active. Beside it lay her ongoing research notes, filled with calculations and theoretical models far beyond standard UA curriculum. Any progress? May Hatsum asked, entering the lab with her usual boundless energy, though tempered by genuine scientific interest in this particular project. Incremental, Momo replied, adjusting parameters on her monitoring equipment. The Chaquetrix DNA sample remains stable, and I've managed to isolate several unique dimensional frequency patterns within its structure. Enough to establish a targeted dimensional communication link? Hatsum pressed hopefully. Not yet, Momo admitted. The energy requirements exceed our current capabilities, and the precision needed for interdimensional targeting remains problematic without the Omnitrix's advanced algorithms. Hatsum's enthusiasm dimmed only momentarily. We'll figure it out. Science knows no boundaries, even dimensional ones. Momo smiled at her colleague's irrepressible optimism. Indeed. As Hatsum bounded off to another project, Momo returned to her calculations. The work was challenging, perhaps impossible with current technology, but that had never deterred her before. Methodical progress, careful experimentation, precise documentation, these were her strengths, and she applied them with characteristic thoroughness to this most personal of research projects. On her desk, alongside complex equipment and research materials, sat a small framed photograph, Class 1A with Ben included, taken just days before his departure. He stood beside her in the image, both maintaining professional composure though standing perhaps a bit closer than strictly necessary. She allowed herself a moment to study it before returning to her work. 6 months had brought significant progress in her hero training, new responsibilities as a senior student, and growing recognition for her exceptional abilities. Life had continued its forward momentum, as it must. Yet the research continued in parallel, not interfering with her primary responsibilities, but steadily advancing whenever time permitted. Because Momo Yaoyorozu finished what she started, and this particular project held significance beyond mere scientific curiosity. Her monitoring equipment suddenly beeped, an unexpected energy fluctuation in the Chaquetrix sample. She moved quickly to the containment unit, checking readings with practiced precision. The sample was pulsing with slightly increased energy, its pattern shifting in a way she hadn't observed before. Not destabilizing, but responding to something. Momo checked her instruments carefully, ensuring no external energy source was causing the reaction. Finding none, she documented the anomaly meticulously, adding it to her growing database of observations. Perhaps it meant nothing. Perhaps it was simply a normal fluctuation in the sample's interdimensional properties. Or perhaps, somewhere across the dimensional barriers, someone was working from the other side, a hero with an extraordinary device and equally extraordinary determination. Momo smiled slightly as she continued her calculations. Science required patience, precision, and persistence. Fortunately, these were qualities she possessed in abundance. And if anyone could eventually bridge the gap between dimensions, it would be Ben Tennyson, the only person she'd ever met whose determination might possibly match her own. Until then, she would continue her research, fulfill her hero responsibilities, and occasionally glance at the containment unit where a small green cylinder pulsed with energy from another world. After all, dimensions had crossed once before. Who was to say they couldn't cross again? The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.